Chapter 121 Fragrance City. Chen Shang began jumping in happiness. He was full of excitement with a smile hanging on his face. He would have laughed, but he wanted to remain somewhat low-key. Otherwise, if the Elder Courtyard's members came now to investigate, it would definitely be bad. Using his quickest speed, he picked the 20 azure profound fruits. These fruits were enough to last his uses for a very long time. Plus, if this tree continued to grow, it could still bear fruit. Perhaps this was the first ever azure profound tree. If I go to some place with dense death chi, would I be able to grow hell spirit grass? Chen Shang was lying on his bed and secretly got excited as he thought about it. At the same time, he was discussing the possibility with Su Meiyao. I have never tried, after all hell spirit grass is difficult to locate and very rare. I never came across it naturally, but if there is an opportunity you should definitely try. Su Meiyao replied. All the healing dans refined using hell spirit grass were very formidable, almost all of them were above the middle grade profound level. If people were to learn that Chen Shang had grown 20 azure profound fruits in just 20 days, they would definitely be mad with jealousy. This was one of the biggest most confidential secrets Chen Shang had. Leaving the extreme Dan King courtyard, Chen Shang arrived at the 16th Martial Courtyard. He didn't see Yun Xiaodao or the others and, after asking around, he found out they had not yet been assigned any missions, so they had all went out to enjoy their own matters. I have to make a trip to Danxiang Taoyuan and pass the test for a level 3 alchemist. Chen Shang left a note behind before traveling to Danxiang Taoyuan to obtain proof that he was now a level 3 alchemist. A level 3 alchemist was required to understand how to refine 2 different types of middle-grade spirit level dans at least. For refining, the number of failures allowed within the given time were extremely specific, making sure that the tested alchemists truly deserved this title. Chen Shang wanted this. After all, the title of a level 3 alchemist alone would make others fear him and dissuade many from seeking trouble with him. Danxiang Taoyuan was located in the Taoyuan province. Furthermore, it was quite far away from the extreme martial sect. If one were to take an ordinary horse carriage, it would take them at least a month to reach there. However, Chen Shang had the vermilion bird fire wings, so he estimated that it would take him around 10 days to reach Danxiang Taoyuan. Danxiang Taoyuan will probably have a Yaojing waiting for you, Su Meiyao said while making fun of him. TLN. Yaojing, alluring woman or evil spirit who is enchanting and beautiful. Hua Yuyan, Chen Shang had certainly not ever forgotten about this seductive woman, who could seduce everyone with but a movement from her. Thinking about this woman, to his own surprise, he was inexplicably agitated. Hasn't that Yaojing said her true name was not Hua Yuyan? It may be hard to find her. Does that make you very disappointed? Su Meiyao teased with a soft laugh. If she is truly from Danxiang Taoyuan, I don't think it would be too difficult. Chen Shang touched his nose. After arriving at the outskirts of Tianmen City, he used his vermilion bird fire wings to fly above the clouds and towards the Taoyuan province. Fragrance City, this was the nearest city before Danxiang Taoyuan. It could also be considered one of the largest cities within the entire Taoyuan province. While walking down the city, Chen Shang smelled all sorts of different scents. Everywhere he went, he saw many beautiful flowers blooming on various trees and plants. This was truly a beautiful city. Chen Shang had already flown for 10 days. He crossed a dense gigantic mountain range that had been filled with danger and finally arrived at this beautiful place. At the moment, he was sitting on a river shore and feeling the cool breeze on his skin while watching the trees blooming with purple flowers on the shore. His mind and soul became very relaxed. Located in the city was a Danxiang Tower, a property belonging to Danxiang Taoyuan. It was extremely large-scale, not only selling various spirit herbs but also many middle-grade and high-grade spirit-level dans, however they were all very expensive. After asking around the city, Chen Shang finally learned the location of Danxiang Tower. It turned out to be the 20-floor high giant tower. It occupied a very large area and was a 100-zhang wide square tower. Standing in the middle of Fragrance City, it was extremely visible in the center of the city. The tower looked ancient, as if it had been standing there for eons. Many vines had grown on top of it, blooming with various colorful flowers. From time to time, a flock of spiritual birds would hover on top of the vine's flowers near the top of the tower, and it seemed like a very warm and beautiful scene. Worthy of the name Fragrance City, it's so fragrant everywhere. No wonder Hua Yuyan, that Yaojing's entire body smelled so wonderful. Chen Shang muttered. Although he had seen, albeit not very clearly, Hua Yuan's enchanting and seductive body, his heart could not help but be a little bit moved as he started fantasizing about that seductive Yaojing. After entering the first floor of Danxiang Tower, Chen Shang saw many transparent cabinets, and each of them were filled with small jade bottles or boxes. Above each was a label, indicating the name of the dance. There were many people inside, mostly 9th or 10th level mortal martial realm martial artists. But Chen Shang could sense that many of the people in the 10th level mortal marital realms had a similar uncommon type of true qi. He inferred from this that they were the hired guards of this tower. Chen Shang learned from a beautiful shopgirl that among the 20 floors of Danxiang Tower, the first 5 floors at the bottom were specialized in selling dans. The 6th to 9th floor were used to refine dans, and the 10th floor was the location of the alchemist's assessment. As for floors 11 to 20, they were either used to grow spirit herbs or the residential location of some of the staff from Danxiang Tower. If I want to sell spirit herbs, which floor should I go to? Chen Shang asked in a low voice. He intended to dispose of various expensive spirit herbs, and he was sure the buyer would be an important figure of Danxiang Taoyuan. At that time, he could inquire details about Hua Yuan. Young master, what level of spirit herbs do you wish to sell? That beautiful shopgirl asked with a sweet smile. I want to sell the metal spirit fruit. Chen Shang lowered his voice and whispered, making the beauty surprised. She saw Chen Shang appeared to not be joking. Furthermore, she knew that no one dared to joke around with Danxiang Tower before whispering in reply, young master, please follow me. Metal spirit fruit, even in Danxiang Taoyuan there were only a few, now there was someone here who wished to sell them. Who in the world would be unwilling to buy it? This was the main reason why Chen Shang soon arrived inside a VIP room. While drinking high-grade spiritual tea, Chen Shang could not help but emotionally sigh, ah. Good tea. It is amazing and worthy of Danxiang Taoyuan to receive guests with such a great tea. The person who came to discuss the matter with Chen Shang turned out to be a middle-aged woman. Although she looked ordinary, she had a noble temperament and her bearing revealed an almost regal atmosphere, giving off a very good impression. Chen Shang quickly stood up and saluted her with a smile. After all, this person could be considered his elder. The middle-aged woman was wearing a plain light blue dress, but her regal aura made her more compelling. This was also the reason Chen Shang was somewhat stiff, furthermore he was unable to tell the full strength of this middle-aged woman. There is no need to be so polite, I'm just a steward. Young master can forego the formalities and act as he wishes. That middle-aged woman softly said with a faint smile. She had a very amiable tone. Chen Shang was sure that this middle-aged woman was someone in the true martial realm. This Danxiang Tower had actually sent such an important person as a guard. You can simply call me Mrs. Li. Can I take a look at the young master's metal spirit fruit? Mrs. Li asked with a slight smile. Hearing her name, Chen Shang was slightly surprised, asking, could it be you or the wife of Fragrance City's governor, Li Xiao? Exactly. It seems that young master has just come to Fragrance City. We, husband and wife, are true disciples of Danxiang Taoyuan. Mrs. Li replied. Chen Shang took out the metal spirit fruit. Just now, he came to understand a little bit more about Fragrance City. The governor and his wife were both in the true martial realm, yet only the governor was famous. For how much does young master intend to sell this metal spirit fruit? Mrs. Li took only a glance before confirming this was indeed a metal spirit fruit. Moreover, it was grown under good conditions, and the spirit qi inside this metal spirit fruit was very verdant. Before coming here, Chen Shang also learned about the general prices of spirit herbs. This metal spirit fruit was probably worth around 70,000 middle-grade crystal stones. Although it was technically a same-ranked herb as the azure profound fruit, it was 10 times cheaper than its counterpart. Not to mention if the azure profound fruit was put up for auction, it would sell for an even higher price. Chapter 122, Search for Dragon. Chapter 122 Search for Dragon. TLN. Danxiang means Dan fragrance and Taoyuan means paradise. As it will be confusing, we are not going to change the name, but specified to make it clear. 80,000. Chen Shang said one very fair price, and Mrs. Li nodded her head, then rotated a white jade bracelet on her hand, and with that a storage pouch appeared. These are the 80,000 crystal stone, young master can check it. Mrs. Li slightly smiled. Chen Shang swept with his divine sense, quickly understood clearly, there really were neatly cut 80,000 middle-grade crystal stones, and contained inside all of them was a rich spirit qi. Usually they were used for cultivation, and it was the most favored method of many low-level martial artists. While the majority of sects used them in arranging some large array or they were embedded in a spirit weapon, they had a very wide range of usage. Mrs., I want to ask you something, whether or not you know about the girl who was sent in the secular world to manage Danxiang Herbal Manor. Chen Shang asked. Mrs. Li shook her head. I don't know, it was all arranged by the dean personally, even when she came or returned we are not clear. Besides whoever was there only used Hua Yuan, this name. Chen Shang lightly sighed. If I meet the dean, I'll inquire for the young master, hope that young master can often come. Mrs. Li slightly smiled and said. Chen Shang gratefully nodded his head. He now had 100,000 crystal stones. This was not a small sum, and he came to Danxiang Tower to buy some spirit herbs. Both the deans of Danxiang Taoyuan and Icewind Valley were very mysterious, and rarely participated in major things. So not many people had seen their faces. But Chen Shang was certain both the deans of Danxiang Taoyuan and Icewind Valley were females. From seeing that both the stewards of Danxiang Herbal Manor and Danxiang Tower were females, Chen Shang dared to be sure of this point. The Danxiang Taoyuan's dean, and Elder Dan, whether or not they have any relation to each other. Chen Shang vehemently suspected. Chen Shang now bought a large number of herbs for refining low-grade and middle-grade spirit-level dans. Now he first wished to learn how to refine two kinds of low-grade spirit-level dan. One was called Gathering Spirit Powder, and this was the favorite for people with poor spirit veins. After taking it, it could temporarily improve the quality of their spirit vein, and could make the martial artist absorb spirit chi as fast as the martial artists with good spirit veins. It was relatively easy to sell low-grade spirit-level dans. Another one was called the Martial Element Dan, which contained a kind of violent true chi. After swallowing it, it would make the martial artist enter into a violent state, increasing the power released from their true chi. But it also carried side effects with it, and if it was taken continuously, it would be hazardous to the human body. But it was one of the favorite dans taken by martial artists at the 10th level of the mortal martial realm because while fighting demon beasts, as long as they could increase their strength even by a little bit they would be able to win. If carefully taken, it had no major side effects. Then there were also the Exploding Chi Dan and Melting Poison Dan, middle-grade spirit-level dans, and that was what he planned to refine after successfully learning how to refine the low-grade spirit-level dans. It was said that both the Martial Element Dan and the Gathering Spirit Powder were relatively easier to refine than True Chi Dan. Besides, they were also not too expensive. One of them could also lay a good foundation. A Martial Elemental Dan could be bought for 300 crystal stones, while the Gathering Spirit Powder could be bought for 400, and each set of herbs for each Dan was also similarly priced. Because after refining each set of herbs, they would be able to yield at least 4 dans. After successfully refining could one cheaply earn crystal stones. Chen Shang bought 20 sets of materials for each Dan, then left the Danxiang Tower. Because he found that he was being targeted. When he came out from the detention, he came to know a bounty was set by Beast Martial Sect on him. In the entire Chenwu provinces he had a bounty of 100,000 crystal stones. These 100,000 crystal stones were counted as nothing in the eyes of Chen Shang, but for many people it was a very large number. Because it would allow the martial artists to buy a lot of true elemental dans or true chi dans, from which they would be able to elevate their strength by a lot. After leaving the Danxiang Tower, Chen Shang walked towards the outskirts of Fragrance City. He wanted to lead those targeting him to the outside of the city, and if they had any evil intentions then Chen Shang would also conveniently act. As long as he didn't encounter any true martial realm level martial artists, Chen Shang had nothing to fear. Even if there were many of them. Just as the city gates were in his sight, a dragon roar suddenly came from a distance. This sudden oncoming sound was deafening, and everyone inside the Fragrance City could hear it clearly. This dragon roar made everyone's eardrums slightly sore from shock, and it was very shocking. Chen Shang raised his head, looked, and saw in the sky far away from the city gates, there was now a red overcast which was gradually transforming into a dragon, but it only appeared for a short time, and then suddenly disappeared. This vision could be described as earth-shattering, and this sharp dragon roar even made the land slightly tremble, making the fishes in the river writhe, and all the birds resting on the trees in Fragrance City densely flew in the upper air. Everything and everyone was very frightened. Chen Shang immediately told this situation to Su Meiyao and Bai Yuyu. They had also heard the dragon roar previously, and when they came to know about a dragon overcast emerging just after the roar far away in the sky, they could not help but exclaim. Dragon birth. Su Meiyao with excitement as well as with some fear said. Dragons appearing in the mortal world was very detrimental for the mortal world. If this dragon became a full adult, it would absolutely be a huge disaster for the mortal world. How could a dragon be born? Chen Shang walked out of the city, and even he found it difficult to believe. Not clear, but our teacher had once told us that when the dragon had broken the shell of the dragon egg, a dragon overcast would appear in the sky, and it would be accompanied by a dragon roar. A dragonling is born in this way. Bai Yu's complexion became gloomy, like she was worried about something. If a dragon is reined in by a wicked person, then it would be troublesome. Su Meiyao's brow wrinkled, and her enchanting face became somewhat pale. Chen Shang, you should also hurry. You might be able to find the dragon, and as you have learned the dragon martial technique, it should be much easier for you to rein in the dragon. Rein in a dragon? Are you kidding? That was what Chen Shang thought, and Chen Shang didn't believe he could do it. Besides, a large number of people were now running towards that direction. What are you standing there for? Quickly, let's go. Bai Yu's cold voice loudly resounded in his ear. Chen Shang also broke into a gallop, mixed in the crowd and sighed. He had intended to use Vermilion Bird Fire Wing, but he feared he might be found out by the true martial realm martial artists of the Beast Martial Sect, and at that time they would attack him, and that was not worth it. While he was running, Chen Shang felt a few true martial realm martial artists' chi fluctuations. As the more time passed, he sensed more and more true martial realm martial artists. Their speed was very fast, and some were even standing on their own spirit weapons and flying at a low altitude. After pouring their true chi into their spirit weapons, one could, by using their divine sense, control their true chi undulations, which would allow the spirit weapon to fly. But with this they could only fly at a low altitude. Once they flew too high, due to some other conditions, they would fall down. Besides, this could only be achieved by using level 7 spirit weapons. In just a short span of time, Chen Shang discovered more than 30 true martial realm martial artists. As this place was rich in dans, it could attract many strong martial artists. A large group of people flew towards the location where the red dragon cloud appeared, and most people thought a strange treasure must have appeared in that place, otherwise it absolutely would not sight such a vision. Only Chen Shang knew that this vision was due a dragonling being born. An hour passed, and everyone came to a very large valley. Currently there was a big light red cloud over this valley, which was left over from the previous cemented dragon. Everyone was searching in this huge valley, but they had not found any other thing. Just a jong-wide pit in the center of the valley, and it appeared as if something burst out from below. Chen Shang, one man suddenly shouted, and everyone was immediately surprised, and as long as someone took part in a day-to-day life, all of them would have heard Chen Zhang's name. Chen Shang was but worth 100,000 crystal stones. Chen Shang did not immediately respond, but there was a middle-aged man wearing black robe, with a sheet in his hand, who gradually walked towards him. Chapter 123. Demanding Life Devil Bow. Chapter 123. Demanding Life Devil Bow. You are Chen Shang, correct? That middle-aged man held up a sheet towards Chen Shang. On it was a very realistic painting of Chen Zhang's appearance. Although Chen Shang was now wearing a very common outfit, his eyes, face, nose, and mouth were all very similar. Earlier Chen Shang had heard that the Beast Martial Sect mass distributed portraits of him everywhere, which made him furious. He had just killed a Beast Martial Sect's disciple to save his own life, but now the Beast Martial Sect was posting a high bounty on his head. Now he swore in his heart that one day in the future, he would definitely clear this debt with the Beast Martial Sect. So you want to kill me to collect the 100,000 crystal stones reward? Chen Shang clenched his fist and asked in a heavy tone. Chen Shang guessed that this middle-aged man in front of him was responsible for sending all those people who were eyeing him previously. By now there were a few thousand martial artists gathered in this valley, and they were mostly all in the mortal martial realm. Although they had not found any treasure, they encountered Chen Shang, and the 100,000 crystal stones reward was a temptation that was very hard to resist for many of them here. However, none of them had acted and all took a wait-and-see attitude. Besides, they all knew that Chen Shang was not easy to deal with. According to the Beast Martial Sect, as long as someone can get your head, they would be able to receive 100,000 crystal stones. However, if you don't resist, I might just leave your corpse intact for the reward. That middle-aged man coldly smiled before retracting the portrait in his hand. The middle-aged man wore a black robe, and a strange true chi was exuding from his whole body. And it differed very much from the people around him. Moreover, Chen Shang felt that this true chi breath was somewhat similar. Are you a disciple of the 100 Poison Sect? Chen Shang coldly asked. The 100 Poison sect was one of the 5 great devil sects. It was also the most feared devil path sect by the martial artists of the Chenwu 9 provinces. Because the 100 Poison sect specialized in the usage of poisons, they could kill anyone invisibly, and after they were dead, they themselves wouldn't know how they died. Really? 100 Poison sect? Hearing these 3 words, the complexion of everyone around suddenly changed. They one after another went far away from Chen Shang, leaving out even more space, and overseeing everything from far. There were even some people who were afraid of death, and went far away from the valley even more quickly. That middle-aged man in his heart could not help but be surprised, sneered and said, worthy of an exceptional figure of the new generation. You truly have a good eyesight. Chen Shang noticed, few true martial realm martial artists were also overlooking from far away. If it was before, after knowing one was from the 100 Poison sect, he would have been directly hunted down by the righteous sects, but now the true martial realm martial artists had no intention to come out and fight. From this it was perfectly clear they were all interested in watching, and even had the intention to wait for Chen Shang to be killed. At this time they also wanted to receive the 100,000 crystal stones by taking out Chen Shang. 100,000 crystal stones even for true martial realm martial artists was not a small amount. 100,000 crystal stones reward, it is definitely mine to grab. That middle-aged man grinned, fiercely waving his palm, only to see countless needles flying towards Chen Shang. One after another colorless and odorless poisonous chi permeated from these needles. Chen Shang, after knowing the other party was a 100 Poison sect disciple, he was immediately on alert, because the 100 Poison sect also specialized in usage of hidden weapons. If he could not find where the attack from his hidden weapons came from, then he would certainly be dead. A slight black chi suddenly covered the whole of Chen Zhang's body, and this black chi in the blink of an eye transformed into a clear water covering, wrapping around Chen Shang. Those piercing poisonous needles plunged into that water chi cover, and suddenly the chi aura on the needles dissipated in the water. This was a kind of hard and soft defensive martial skill that Chen Shang had just learned. It was called the Black Tortoise Luo Tian cover, and don't see this layer of mild water chi cover as nothing. This cover could withstand very strong powers. Even if 10 mortal realm martial artists of the 10th level attacked it at the same time, they would barely be able to destroy this chi cover. No need to mention the person inside of it. After the needle containing the poison pierced the water chi cover, they were resolved without a trace, and not even a shadow of any of them were seen. This made the middle-aged man dumbstruck. He himself was at the 10th level of the mortal martial realm, and previously he had fired those poisonous needles with 100% of his power. He had already killed hundreds of 9th and 10th level mortal martial realm martial artists using this move, but Chen Shang had dispelled it so easily. Although the Black Tortoise Divine Exercise lacked in powerful offense skills, but its defense was abnormally powerful. Moreover, very little true chi was consumed. Chen Shang had only learned this skill after entering the 10th level of the mortal martial realm. He continued using the Black Tortoise Tian Luo cover to protect his body, and then leapt towards that middle-aged man. The 100 Poison sect's martial arts were not strong, however, their poison and hidden weapon were. Chen Zhang's attack was very fast, and not to mention that middle-aged man, even the people watching in the distance didn't have the time to react. Chen Shang came in front of that middle-aged man. Chen Shang shot a palm, and the ground fiercely shook, suddenly cracking open. As soon as he acted, Chen Shang had used the powerful low-grade earth-level martial skill, Shocking Heaven Palm. His palm carried a powerful shock and true chi encompassed that middle-aged man's body, and in the blink of an eye emitting a burst of blood mist due to shock. That middle-aged man could clearly feel that inside of his own body his bones, and meridians, inch by inch, were shattering like firecrackers. Only those who had been struck by Chen Zhang's attack could clearly feel Chen Zhang's overbearing might. Otherwise who would have believed that this was the power released at the 10th level of the mortal martial realm? Chen Shang coldly smiled while he looked at the painful face of the middle-aged man lying on the ground. Just as he thought of beheading him, he saw that middle-aged pull out a pitch-black crossbow. He could clearly see pitch-black crossbow shooting a black arrow, directly stabbing towards his heart. So fast. Chen Shang subconsciously reinforced Black Tortoise Tian Luo cover's defensive force, and when that arrow shot from the pitch-black crossbow arrived, only a bang sound was heard. The chi cover wrapping around Chen Zhang's body suddenly burst open, and a finger-long short crossbow arrow was suspended in front of Chen Zhang's chest. So close, it almost penetrated my heart. Chen Zhang's silhouette flashed, leapt into the air, and fired a palm towards the middle-aged man on the ground. A giant palm cemented from azure true chi appeared, and fiercely pressed on that middle-aged man. The pressure broke everything, and blood and flesh splattered. Chen Shang took a deep breath, and thinking about that previous quick and sudden crossbow arrow, his heart had a lingering fear. From observing that shot crossbow arrow he found out it was congealed out of true chi, and was very overbearing. Otherwise it would not have been able to shatter his powerful black tortoise Tian Luo cover. Chen Shang pulled out that black crossbow from the mutilated remains, and used clean water to wash it. Then he poured his own true chi in it, and saw that the crossbow suddenly congealed a short black arrow. Isn't this the third ranked among the level 7 spirit weapons, demanding life devil bow? From far away a sound came, and this made the onlookers near the center burst into hubbub. A level 7 spirit weapon was very rare, and mostly true martial realm martial artists were in possession of them. Moreover, the top 10 were even more formidable. Chen Shang in his heart was delighted as this demanding life devil bow was very easy to use. This was absolutely the best spirit weapon for sinister martial artists, and just as he was about to put it away, a gust of fearsome chi waves pressured down on him from the sky. This true chi was very heavy, as if a big mountain fiercely befell on him, ruthlessly pounding on Chen Zhang's body. In that moment, Chen Shang only felt his own internal organs inside his own body being squeezed together. Then his whole body cracked, making him spew a mouthful of blood, and then he fell on the ground. Someone attacked him, but it was also someone at the true martial realm. Chen Shang immediately thought, this attacker must have been someone who wanted to obtain this demanding life devil bow. Chapter 124, Liao Xiaoyun. Chapter 124 Liao Xiaoyun. One handsome young man wearing a beautiful blue robe slowly descended from the sky, stood in front of Chen Shang and bent over, extending his hand towards that demanding life devil bow. After he saw the devil bow slowly rise, and suck towards that young man's hand. Chen Shang looked up and glared at the young man with fire gushing out from his eyes. He wanted to deeply ingrain this young man's appearance into his own mind. As long as he does not die, he would definitely make this young man pay tenfold, no 100-fold. Seeing the monstrous anger within Chen Zhang's eyes, the young man only slightly smiled in response. Chen Shang, HMPH now mortal martial realm martial artists are actually worth 100,000 crystal stones. To think mortal martial realm martial artists are now so valuable that one brat could actually be worth so much. I took this demanding life bow, but don't think I'm robbing you. I'm only taking it because it is a devil weapons, and in your hands it would be harmful for the entire martial arts community. On what basis? If you want to confiscate it, you would have to wait for your turn. At the very least, our extreme martial sect dean needs to speak first. Chen Shang said while grinding his teeth. Based on the fact that right now, I alone can stomp all over you. That young man contemptuously smiled and stepped down on Chen Zhang's head, burying his face in dirt. Chen Shang felt like his heart was bleeding. He and that young man had never met before this, but because the other party was currently stronger he was stepped on, trampling all over his dignity. Mortal martial realm martial artists, in the face of those in the true martial realm, were nothing more than ants. This time around, Chen Shang was seriously injured, yet both his hands stubbornly grabbed a handful of soil while he struggled to lift his head. Glaring up at that young man, he asked through grinded teeth, his voice full of resentment, "What is your name?" True martial sect, Liao Xiaoyun. Why, do you want to take revenge? I'm afraid you will not have that opportunity. I'll take you to Beast Martial Sect and receive the reward. Liao Xiaoyun sneered before once again vigorously stepping down on Chen Zhang's head. At this moment an endless hatred was born in Chen Zhang's heart. To once safeguard and maintain his dignity, although he was nothing more than an ant in the eye of experts, he did not hesitate at all to oppose and defy Elder Dan. Although he was successful that time, it was on the premise that Elder Dan did not act with a heavy hand. If you don't have the strength, how could you talk about dignity? If you had enough strength, you could obtain everything and your dignity would never be able to be trampled on by others. Never would you have to worry about losing your life. I want to become stronger. This was Chen Zhang's only thought. Afterwards he could have his revenge. Chen Zhang's strength came out of nowhere as he once again lifted his head. By this point, the soil in his hands had already been reduced to powder as blue veins bulged out on both of his fists. He had a grim look on his face, and each and every word of his was like a knife. Liao Xiaoyun, I, Chen Shang, had no injustice or hatred with you. However you still act and treat me like this. I swear, if I, Chen Shang, do not die then you will. I'll make you pay 100, no, 1,000 times over. I will not only utterly destroy you, but also decimate the true martial sect behind you into mere rubble. His voice contained bottomless hatred accompanied by a monstrous slaughter chi that was being released from his entire body, and people could not help but shudder from it. Humph, you do not have this opportunity. However, just as Liao Xiaoyun finished speaking, his complexion fiercely changed. A big pool of water had suddenly appeared underneath Chen Zhang's body as he escaped into the water. Everyone sucked in a mouthful of cold air. To their surprise, Chen Shang had actually escaped. From the ruthless words Chen Shang had just spoke, nobody had a single doubt in their minds that with time, Chen Shang would definitely become a huge problem for the true martial sect. Chen Shang had casted water escape and gotten away. Liao Xiaoyun had blasted a few palm blows and cleaved open the earth, creating giant deep pits, yet not even a hint of Chen Shang could be found. Beast martial sect, true martial sect. Just wait and see what happens. Chen Shang clenched his fists and viciously said while floating down a river's side. Oh, well, make a good recovery. Su Meiyao didn't know what to say. Quickly enter the true martial realm. At that time, I can pass down my supreme devil skills. You could make those sanctimonious guys suffer in agony, making their fates worse than death, make them regret ever being born into this world. Bai Yuyu's voice was also filled with slaughter chi, extremely cold and piercing. It was perfectly clear that she was furious on Chen Zhang's behalf, making him feel very warm in his heart. Once again, I'm letting you down. Chen Shang climbed ashore and took a white jade dan out from a box and swallowed. His injuries were very serious and needed quite some time before he could recover. It's nothing, you came out for experience, who hasn't encountered these sort of things? As long as you're not dead, everything's fine. Relying on your wealth, only time is required for I and junior sister to make you into a peerless martial artist. Bai Yuyu replied. Her voice was rather high-pitched, she was encouraging Chen Shang. Chen Shang operated the Tai Chi subduing dragon divine exercise and nursed his injuries before once again swallowing a white jade dan, which made him much better. That Liao Xiaoyun is very powerful, his strength is close to the nirvana realm. He should be in the mid-stage of the tempering realm. Su Meiyao said. The true martial realm, altogether, had 9 levels. After the true martial realm, one could enter the 3 extreme great realms Jiji San Da Jing. These 3 extreme great realms were the spirit martial realm, Ling Wu Jing. In this realm divine sense was taken to the extreme. Then there was the soul martial realm, Hun Wu Jing. After the extreme peak of divine sense was achieved, a martial spirit was bred and then taken to its extreme peak. In the end there was the tempering realm by Lian Jing, where the body was tempered to its extreme limits, which was often the hardest step. This was because cultivation of the body was very hard. Once the pinnacle of the tempering realm was achieved, it led to the great nirvana tribulation. Only if one passes this tribulation, could they enter the nirvana realm. The nirvana realm was the peak of martial might within the mortal world. Chen Shang still held a lingering fear. Previously, in front of that Liao Xiaoyun, Chen Shang truly didn't even have the strength to fight back. If only he was in the true martial realm, he would not have been beaten so badly. After a good refinement of your immortal devil body, going through the tempering realm is simply a piece of cake. Said Bai Yuyu. When Chen Shang had left the extreme martial sect, he only brought 2 white jade dans with him. But this was a high-grade spirit-level healing medicine, for those in the mortal martial realm it had a very significant effect. Chen Shang had just recuperated for a day's time and already recovered about half of his strength. He was currently in a cave not too far from the river shore. He had created this cave using the profound aura finger. It was like digging a sediment and was a very quick process. At this time, Chen Shang was still recuperating from his injuries and still had quite some time left before complete recovery. He hid in this cave and took out the inferior alchemical furnace that had been given to him by his father before he started to learn about other low-grade spirit-level dans. TLN, the other low-grade spirit-level dan he knows how to refine is the true Qi Dan. While Chen Shang was in Danxiang Tower, he bought a ton of spirit-level dan ingredients, and there were at least 10 sets for each different dan. The most expensive of the herbs had been the ones for the white jade dan, with each set costing 2,000 crystal stones. He had bought exactly 10 sets of them. Meanwhile a set of herbs for the true elemental dan cost 1,500 crystal stones, and he had bought 10 sets of them as well. Both of these dans were relatively higher in demand among the high-grade spirit-level dans. Then there was the martial elemental Dan and gathering spirit powder, both categorized as low-grade spirit level Dans. As well as the melting poison Dan and the exploding chi Dan, both at the middle grade spirit level. For all of them, he had bought 20 sets for each. He had a solid foundation and rich experience in refining true chi Dans, and he believed that it wouldn't be too difficult for him to refine other spirit level Dans. At most, he would just fail a couple of times. Gathering spirit powder was a crystalline powder that could be taken with water. This was the first time Chen Xiang had refined herbal powder, but compared to Dans it was much easier to refine because he wouldn't have to solidify them. Only after failing 8 times was Chen Xiang able to successfully refine it, using a total of 4 days. However, they were all refined out using that core quality alchemical furnace. Next was the martial element Dan. It inherently contained violent elements, which was why refining it was very difficult. Actually, it was harder than refining true chi Dans. Chen Xiang spent a total time of 10 days, along with 15 failures before he was able to successfully refine one out. After switching to the brilliant flame dragon furnace, Chen Xiang once again failed 3 times, but did not fail in the 2 that followed. Low-grade spirit level Dans were more difficult compared to the 3 common grades of Dans, all of which Chen Xiang had mastered before. However, after getting experienced in refining low-grade spirit level Dans, the others were now much easier for him to master. For example, a low-grade spirit level Dan called confusing spirit powder, Chen Xiang had been successful in refining with just 1 try. When this drug was sprinkled, it could confuse other people's minds. Within the period of confusion, it would make others feel confused and drowsy, and it was a wonder drug used by shady martial artists or to deal with the demon beasts. Please support us by adding the series onto your reading list in novel updates. It helps a lot. At 3000 a bonus chapter, Laughing Face. Chapter 125, Missing. Chapter 125 Missing. Chen Xiang was only 19 years old, yet he was already able to refine 4 different kinds of low-grade spirit level Dans. If he were to go back to Danxiang Tower and get his alchemist rank certificate, it would certainly scare many people. Half a month passed, and he was only a little bit better. After all, his vital organs and meridians had received very serious injuries, and only now had he stabilized them. His condition would not continue to deteriorate, but only with time could he recover bit by bit. Originally Chen Zhang's target was to refine middle-grade spirit level Dans, only then would he go for the alchemist assessment, but now he had made up his mind to only go when he could refine 2 kinds of high-grade spirit level Dans so he could become a level 4 alchemist. It should be noted that his apprentice, Yao Haisheng, was only a level 3 alchemist. Although there was only a single-digit difference between a level 3 and level 4 alchemist, but it was like the difference between heaven and earth. Level 4 alchemists were able to refine 2 different kinds of high-grade spirit level Dans, which was in itself extremely terrifying. This was because most people were not like Chen Xiang, who after refining only 10 or 20 times was able to grasp the most crucial point in refinement. Chen Xiang had heard that some alchemists, while learning to refine the true elemental Dan, had failed hundreds of times. Plus, this was one of the better case scenarios. There were many alchemists who had a very unfortunate life who could never refine the true elemental Dan. In the blink of an eye, 2 months had passed as Chen Xiang was recuperating. He was already successful in refining the 2 middle-grade spirit level Dans, the exploding Chi Dan and the melting poison Dan. Exploding Chi Dan contained a large amount of violent true Chi. After swallowing it, this true Chi would immediately be released. This released true Chi was very violent, but it would not hurt the dosed martial artists. This type of Dan would allow martial artists to temporarily enhance their strength. It was a very popular Dan, even if their entire true Chi had been depleted. After swallowing an exploding Chi Dan, the martial artist could still release one last powerful blow. During a fight, even if it was just a single extra move, the result could end up completely different and overturn the entire fight. The melting poison Dan was a detoxifying Dan which could produce a special potent and true Chi. It would quickly dissipate the poison within the body, turning it into urine or releasing it through sweat. When martial artists went out to hunt demon beasts, taking 1 or 2 melting poison Dans with them would allow them to be much more relaxed. After refining the 2 middle-grade spirit level Dans, he accumulated even more alchemy experience which laid a good solid foundation for refining high-grade spirit level Dans. Chen Xiang had already disappeared for 2 months after his escape, and had not returned to the extreme martial sect. Ji Dongchen and Wu Kaming had secretly sent people to search for their young martial uncle. Although it was very difficult for them to accept a goofball as their young martial uncle, he was still technically their martial uncle and they still had to respect his seniority. This brat shouldn't have died, right? If later on, teacher or that insane old man came to learn about this, then they would raise hell. Wu Kaming said with an anxious look. According to the information we have received, he definitely escaped, yet not even his shadow has been seen in these last 2 months. It is highly likely that he is still recuperating. Liao Xiaoyun, this little rascal, actually dared to do such a thing. Remember that 100 years ago he once contradicted me. If you had not stopped me, I would have slapped off his rotten mouth. Ji Dongchen had a furious expression on his face. Looking at his expression, it was perfectly obvious that he could not wait to head towards the true martial sect and immediately beat Liao Xiaoyun to death. Wu Kaming said, "Dean, this Liao Xiaoyun is a treasure of the true martial sect. In just 3 years he has achieved the tempering realm. It will not be long before he begins his path down nirvana. At that time, he would be the first to ever enter the nirvana realm this quickly. Fastest my ass, if he cannot cope with the nirvana great tribulation, then any genius is nothing more than shit." Ji Dongchen looked out of the window, his eyes twinkling. "I need to take a trip to the beast martial sect, and force them to remove the bounty on Chen Shang. Otherwise this brat is going to face even more hardships in the future. The beast martial sect is relying on their 3 newly advanced nirvana realm martial artists to gain a mile after getting an inch from us, the extreme martial sect. They were actually in the wrong in that matter, yet they still dared post a reward on Chen Shang." Wu Kaming furiously shouted. "They know the nirvana great tribulation for all 3 of us is not far away. They want to take advantage of the fact we are concentrating on the nirvana great tribulations and seize the position of the strongest sect in the Chenwu mainland. Meanwhile the true martial sect just seems ready to make trouble." Ji Dongchen looked extremely serious. The nirvana realm had a total of 9 great tribulations. When the martial artist's strength was elevated to a certain extent, a great tribulation would descend. After crossing each great tribulation, one would become even more powerful, but similarly the next great tribulation would also become even more frightening. Historically many geniuses had fallen while attempting to cross the 9 nirvana tribulations. Ji Dongchen and Wu Kaming, these vigorous old men, had survived these great tribulations again and again. Also, I have no idea where third sister has gone. She said she was going into closed-door training, but not once have I seen her inside the mysterious realm. All day she is so secretive. Our extreme martial sect has been relying on her high-quality refined Dan for support." Ji Dongchen helplessly sighed. There were truly not many excellent alchemists out there. Yeah, she originally had a great chance to become a Dan King, but who could expect her to be seriously injured while crossing the Great Tribulation, leading her purple moon fire spirit being weakened? It is truly regretful. Wu Kaming sighed. Chen Shang had always though Elder Dan was a Dan King, but who would have thought she was the same as Su Meiyao, a Dan ancestor? Nevertheless, this level was already extremely hard to achieve. While hiding in the cave, Chen Shang was oblivious to the fact that millions of people were searching for him. The majority of these people were trying to find him for the reward, because they had learned Chen Shang escaped with serious injuries. As long as they could grab Chen Shang, they could get 200,000 crystal stones as a reward. The beast martial sect had once again increased the reward, and this was right after Ji Dongchen took a trip to visit the beast martial sect. Their intentions were very obvious. They were being intentionally provocative towards the extreme martial sect and intentionally didn't give face to Ji Dongchen. The beast martial sect and the extreme martial sect both equally hated each other to an extreme because Huang Jishan had once killed the beast martial sect's dean. In light of this point, the hatred between them could not be resolved in any way. Seemingly in response, Ji Dongchen also issued a ruthless statement. If anyone stronger than Chen Shang was going to try to kill him to seek the reward, no matter who they were, that person would become the #1 enemy of the extreme martial sect. At that time, all the elders of the extreme martial sect would be dispatched. If they got hold of them, he or she would be tortured to death. All the elders of the extreme martial sect were very powerful and no one doubted Ji Dongchen's words were merely an empty threat. If he said it, they would definitely follow through with it. Others thought Ji Dongchen did this in order to secretly clash with the beast martial sect, but how could they have known that he did it to make it somewhat safer for his young martial uncle? In these past 2 months, Chen Shang had not only learned more about alchemy, but also refined a massive amount of true qi dans, a total of more than 1,000. all of which he intended to sell. As for the true qi dans he had obtained previously, he had already eaten all of them. What he needed right now was a substantial amount of crystal stones to buy the herbs required for the refinement of high-grade spirit-level dans. This was because when he was refining high-grade spirit-level dans, he had failed in all of his attempts. Now you should start refining building foundations dans. Their difficulty is around the same as high-grade spirit-level dans. Since you don't have any more herbs for high-grade spirit-level dans, you should learn how to refine the building foundation dan. If you're successful, you should soon be able to enter the true martial realm. Su Meiyao said. Chen Qiang was elated in his heart, but at the same time it was almost unbearable. The materials for the building foundation dan were very expensive, and every time he failed his heart would feel like bleeding. What are you so scared of? Obtaining a 1,000-year beast dan isn't necessary for you. To replace it, you could simply hunt down demon beasts and get their monster dan. As for the herbs, you have the dragon saliva exercise. What are you so afraid of? Su Meiyao continued speaking. TLN. Okay, so in the previous chapter someone commented and asked why Liao Xiaoyun attacked Chen Qiang even though he was much more powerful and didn't need the crystal stones. First off, who doesn't like free money? Second, and the much more important one, as it was explained in this chapter, the extreme martial sect is currently at the top position and some sects dislike that, so they are creating trouble to try and humiliate the extreme martial sect. Cause the most powerful figures are busy getting ready to cross their tribulation, they are bound to try and create trouble. One more chapter to come. Chapter 126, A Woman's Heart. Chapter 126, A Woman's Heart. This chapter is sponsored by Sebastian Tisseyer. Thank you for your support. Chen Zhang's heart was pounding as he was debating whether or not he should attempt to refine the 1,000 vein fruit, metal spirit fruit, and azure profound fruit. He had more than 20 of each, which was more than enough for him to try 20 times. The life element inside the 1,000-year beast dan was only enough for him to try 5 times. As for the other auxiliary spirit herbs, he was definitely not lacking in them. As for the purple spirit fruit, 1,000-year-old ginseng, blood spirit grass, radix, earth spirit grass and others, they were all herbs he obtained from the herb garden and he still had plenty. Chen Qiang also knew that in order to protect himself, he needed to enter the true martial realm. Otherwise he would become targeted by those who had reached the true martial realm and he would once again be embarrassed and forced to escape, or he might even be killed. Su Meiyao thought for a moment and once again began speaking. Use the brilliant flame dragon furnace while refining, because refining it will require a lot of time. As much as 1 or 2 months, at the very least it would still take 8 to 10 days. Also, in order to bake those herbs into herbal powder you need to use extremely high temperatures, and when you fuse the herbal spirit qi it would require even more time and spirit. Chen Qiang nodded his head in response and took out the herbs required for refining a building foundation dan. He was currently hiding in the mountainside, and in order to ensure more safety he dug a passage from under the river leading to the mountainside, making it ever more difficult for people to find him. Su Meiyao and Bai Yuyu both came out. The cave was illuminated by luminous stones and the environment could not be considered bad as there was also a nearby lake. Take each herb and divide each of them into 4 equal parts. Su Meiyao ordered while glancing at the spirit herbs that were exuding all kinds of peculiar spirit qis. What? Divide it into 4? Chen Qiang couldn't understand and asked. Exactly. Divide a metal spirit fruit into 4 equal parts and do the same for a azure profound fruit. Now do you understand? Divide a single set of building foundation dan martials into 4 parts and refine them individually. All of your herbs have sufficient spirit qi, this will not damage them at all. Additionally, if you fail now, it will be less disheartening. Su Meiyao teased while smiling slightly. At the same time she grabbed a knife and started cutting a metal spirit fruit. Chen Qiang now understood. He had also once thought of doing this, but previously the herbs were not of a superior enough quality to do so, and after cutting them much of their spirit qi would be dispersed. In order to prevent the dispersal of spirit qi from the herbs, Su Meiyao made Chen Qiang dilute the dragon saliva using water, and then soak the cut-off spirit herbs in it. That way, not only would the spirit qi of the herbs not be dispersed, but on the contrary it would increase by a lot. Sister Meiyao, I had not expected that not only were you so beautiful, but also equally clever. Who said big chest means no brains? All nonsense. Chen Qiang said while smiling. It definitely wouldn't hurt to flatter Su Meiyao. If my junior sister wasn't clever, she would never have become so strong. Even more, she would definitely not have become a powerful alchemist. Bai Yu said. Su Meiyao tenderly spat, good. Brat, have you or have you not previously considered me and Sister Yu as only big chests and no brains? Chen Shang saw that Bai Yu looked colder than usual. He could not help but take glances again and again at the proud chest of Bai Yu, but he still hastily said, Sister Meiyao, why do you want to drag in Sister Yu? Previously I was just kidding, just joking around. He had already seen everything from these two beauties. Chen Shang would never forget this, and it was the same for Bai Yu and Su Meiyao. After all, they were women, and this kind of thing would be taken even more seriously inside their hearts. In fact, they would often think about it. However, they also knew that Chen Shang at that time had no choice in the matter, besides it also gifted them a great hope. Right now, both beauties once again thought about the time Chen Shang saw their perfect jade bodies, and their face could not help but turn red. However, Chen Shang was concentrating on cutting the herbs and was completely oblivious of this fact, or else he would have definitely been stunned at their facial expressions. Chen Shang was first cutting the main herbs, before sorting out the other auxiliary herbs and uniformly cutting them. This was all done very carefully, otherwise it would affect the alchemy. However, it is very important to know that Chen Shang had now been refining dans for quite a long time, so he was clear on how much each section should be. This sort of subtle feeling was a must-have for alchemists. Sister Yu, Sister Meiyao, who do you two like? When your strength was at its pinnacle, hadn't there been a lot of people who chased you? Chen Shang curiously asked. Like hell, these two divine girls were ordinary existences. He had read long and heard as well as scoured a lot of historical texts, but still hasn't found out anything about them. He suspected that they were from other mortal martial worlds, like Elder Dan. Although I have encountered many powerful men, I have never liked any of them. In my entire lifetime I would never have this sort of feeling. This is mainly because the primary exercise I cultivate is called the Ruthless Devil skill. Bai Yu coldly said, while some people did chase me, they were unable to defeat me, so I refused them on those grounds. Bai Yu truthfully replied. This actually made Chen Shang somewhat surprised but also doubtful. He glanced at Su Meiyao and saw that her eyes were full of concern, as if she was worried about Bai Yu. Sister Meiyao, what about you? Chen Shang asked. As they had spent more time with each other, they had all become a bit more familiar. Sometimes he would also ask about some relatively large issues. I'd like to find a good man, but that is too hard. My teacher was powerful enough, but he was still not able to give us maximum protection, otherwise we would not be in this situation. Su Meiyao replied in a low voice. Afterwards she gently laughed. Don't look at me like that, not a single person has actually chased me, because I was an alchemist. Other people could not afford to have such high aspirations, not to mention the fact that my reputation was even more ferocious than senior sisters. Such an enchanting and moving Yaojing actually had a ferocious reputation. Chen Shang found it somewhat hard to believe. Chen Shang was sure that these two women had hid many things from him, and perhaps even lied to him about some things. He had begun to suspect that these two were not from the mortal martial world, but had already gone to the heavenly realms, otherwise their enemy would not be so strong. But how would people from the heavenly realms appear in the mortal world? After all, only at the time of the intersections of the three worlds would they be able to descend to the mortal world. Could it be that both of them arrived at this mortal martial world 100,000 years ago during the time of the last great battles between the three realms? Chen Shang, while thinking in his heart, was secretly shocked, but he immediately rejected this notion. This was because even during the three realms fusion, the heavenly realms and the mortal world remained separated. Do not think too much about it. Should you live well and fully play out the yin and yang divine vein to its full potential, you might be able to transcend me and senior sister. At that time, I might think of making you my man. Su Meiyao coquettishly winked at Chen Shang and said with a pretty smile. This made Chen Zhang's meat suddenly fall into utter chaos. Cough, cough, I already have Shenxian, Chen Shang replied. So what, if I'm willing to be your woman, do you think I would care about that? Su Meiyao mischievously smiled before touching Chen Zhang's face. At this time, Chen Shang acted like a shy girl as he blushed before turning away. His heart was pounding. The herbs had already been systematically arranged. Chen Shang began refining the building foundation dan. He intended to try refining a few times before asking Su Meiyao about the difficulties he encounters. He originally only had 15 sets of herbs, but after cutting them it had become a total of 60. He believed that he would absolutely not fail more than 50 times. Using the brilliant flame dragon furnace to refine the building foundation Dan, he actually only needed an hour, but that was only for the cut-off herbs. Besides, he also failed in the middle of refining. Please support us by voting for us on Novel Updates rating system and adding us to your reader list. We currently have 198 votes and 2,975, and so for every 50 votes, so at 250, then at 300 we will give out an extra chapter, and for every additional 100 reader lists, at 3,000 to smooth things out we will give out an extra chapter. Thanks for the support, laughing face. Chapter 127, Bottleneck. Chapter 127, Bottleneck. Yesterday's regular chapter. Sorry about the late release. Also, with 264 votes and 3,028 reading lists, we also owe 2 extra chapters. We will definitely release these ASAP. The first time refining the building foundation Dan, Chen Xiang failed. However, he found out it was indeed true that the difficulty in refining the building foundation Dan was similar to that of a high-grade spirit level Dan, and 10 times harder than the refinement of the true elemental Dan and the white jade Dan. Though he failed completely while refining high-grade spirit-level Dans, but he had accumulated experience from them. And regarding control, he had gained a lot of experience, or else he would not be able to refine using the brilliant flame dragon furnace for more than an hour, and that was equivalent to half of the refining process. If it was someone else, in the absence of the herbs for refining a high-grade spirit-level Dan, they absolutely would not try to refine a building foundation Dan. Even if they wanted to refine a building foundation Dan, they would first refine a low-grade profound level Dan. If those alchemists came to know that Chen Xiang was using so many herbs for the building foundation Dan unprofitably, they would definitely scold Chen Xiang to death. For these material, it could be said that Chen Xiang simply had no shortage of them, just give him some time, and he would have as much as he needed. As long as a seed was left with him, using the dragon saliva exercise, he would be able to grow a large amount of it. Just take the azure profound fruit for example, he had not even taken a full month to grow 20 of them. In addition to learning how to refine the building foundation Dan, Chen Xiang also created dragon saliva. Because he feared that his current materials were not enough for refining a building foundation Dan. Bit by bit time passed, and in the blink of an eye 20 days passed, while refining the building foundation Dan. Chen Xiang had already failed more than 50 times, and he was now only left with 8 set of herbs. The building foundation Dan is a little bit harder than the white jade Dan and the true elemental Dan, and I feel like I've almost succeeded. At this time Chen Xiang was somewhat excited. After experiencing several failures, he had managed to grasp a bit of something, and it was exactly that subtle feeling. Su Meiyao had already passed down her experience to Chen Xiang, allowing Chen Xiang to pay some attention regarding some important points which could allow Chen Xiang to take less detours. In this case, Chen Xiang was step by step getting closer to successfully refining the Dan. Now he was finally at the most crucial step of solidifying the Dan. He was confident, and if he was successfully able to refine the building foundation Dan, it would be much more handy when he once again went to refine the true elemental Dan and the white jade Dan. The brilliant flame dragon furnace was radiating a blood-red light, and from time to time a hot chi would surge out from it. Both of Chen Zhang's hands were placed on the 2 places on the brilliant flame dragon furnace dedicated for hands, which allowed the alchemist to pour the flames, true chi and divine sense in. At this time in Chen Zhang's mind there was a sea of fire, where multitudes of spirit herbs were being baked by the flame at varying temperatures. He was slowly transforming them into powder, overflowing with colorful spirit chi, while the spirit chi drifted at the top, which were tyrannical as well as turbid. Chen Xiang used his divine sense to squeeze them together, for fusion and purification. At the same time he also started integrating those herbs transformed into powder in the sea of fire, and he could not allow any of them to be even a little bit burned, or else it would fall short. This was the test of an alchemist's divine sense. The flames were burning in the brilliant flame dragon furnace for 10 days and 10 nights, but outside it was just past half an hour. Even so, those herbs had not even completely fused. As the time went by, Chen Xiang was already drenched in his sweat, but his true chi was very vigorous, so he was not worried about his true chi consumption, but currently the consumption of his divine sense was very formidable, and this was because his divine sense had to take into account many powders, while at the same time he also had to appease various violent herbal spirit chis as he fused them together. Chen Xiang, using his divine sense, had already squeezed all of the various powders transformed from the herbs, and those colorful tyrannical herbal spirit chis had already calmed down and gradually started fusing. Now it was the most crucial step, which was to, in one breath, make the herbal spirit chi and the herbal powder fuse, and then solidify the dan. In this process there was no room for a single mistake, and if the spirit chi was not enough, or made even a little bit of herbal powder disperse, then everything would be for nothing. Chen Shang had failed many times at this process. Herbal spirit chi and herbal powder fusion. Chen Shang, using his divine sense, slowly cemented a dan from the herbal powder. Chen Shang at this time dropped a drop of dragon saliva, and began to enter the final phase of solidifying the dan. Before he had failed dozens of times at this final moment, and the furnace had exploded. The brilliant flame dragon furnace was slightly trembling, and sweat was dripping from Chen Zhang's face like rain while his eyebrows were tightly knit together. His complexion was also somewhat pale. At this time he could clearly see that the building foundation dan, which was about to solidify in the brilliant flame dragon furnace, had fiercely started shaking, and it looked like it would explode at any time. Su Meiyao's beautiful hands were holding a silk towel tightly, anxiously watching Chen Shang, and Bai Yu's ice-cold and bright pretty eyes were also open wide, with a look of encouragement in her eyes looking at Chen Shang. Would I fail once again? This has already happened to me more than 10 times, is it this is my bottleneck? The bottleneck of my spirit. My divine sense is not enough, so I need to break through. Chen Shang thought, and at this time all his divine sense was almost dried up, but he still needed to continue. Usually, divine sense still occupied a pivotal position, such as some martial arts required very high divine sense. Divine sense was also required to gather true chi outside the body, otherwise true chi would scatter. But in such cases, there was enough divine sense. However, when forging weapon and refining dans, such as alchemists refining some relatively high-level dan, or refiners engraving lots of spirit veins on spirit weapon, when the divine sense was not enough, that would lead to failure. If martial artists completely depleted their divine sense, it would be the same as an energetic man without any spirit, unable to play out any strength of his body. Or they would even fall in a state of drowsiness. Chen Shang had now consumed his divine sense to his limit, but also didn't know by virtue of what he was able to sustain. He felt he was about to fall down, so Chen Shang operated his Tai Chi subduing dragon divine exercise and controlled the vigorous true Chi in his body, making the true Chi madly impact the meridians, so that his whole body was covered in endless pain, so that he could stay awake. At the same time he exercised his power to fuse his true Chi and spirit to quickly condense out divine sense. Chen Shang tortured his own body till blood was overflowing, mixing with sweat on his body, exuding a strange stench. Su Meiyao and Bai Yu both knew Chen Zhang's reason for doing so. Do not force yourself. Give up. Su Meiyao faintly sighed, and gently said. She could not bear to see as Chen Shang continued his self-mutilation. Give up. Chen Shang knew if this time he was not successful, not only would he fail refining the building foundation dan, but also he would be unable to break through his own bottleneck. When he remembered Elder Dan using her superior might against him, he had no power to resist, and he remembered Liao Xiaoyun humiliating him, trampling his dignity. He told himself, in any case if he wanted to become stronger he had to endure. He needed to refine out the building foundation dan, and this was the only way possible for him advance to the true martial realm in a short time. Not only was Chen Shang currently sweating, but he was still bleeding, and in order to keep himself awake, he continued the self-mutilation of his own body. Chen Shang gradually lost consciousness, but his subconscious continued to condense out divine sense, constantly pressing on that restless building foundation dan in the brilliant flame dragon furnace. Unconsciously, Chen Shang suddenly felt losing the sense of his own body, and no matter how he tortured himself, he was unable to feel any pain. Chen Shang suddenly awakened, however, he found himself in a space full of white light, and this was shocking for him. He also saw an infant inside this space, very small, like a newborn baby, and this infant had his eyes closed, looking very cute. Suddenly, that baby opened his eyes, and Chen Shang was fiercely startled, because what this baby could see, he was also seeing. The baby smiled to him, and Chen Shang also left the bizarre space, again returning to the state of alchemy. He surprisingly found out that his divine sense was actually very abundant, and many times more powerful than before. It was as if he had not consumed any of his divine sense before. Su Meiyao and Bai Yu also felt something strange, and they originally thought Chen Shang was giving up, but saw Chen Zhang's raised mouth, exposing a trace of confident smile. Just a moment passed by and Chen Shang opened his eyes, raised his head and insanely laughed, ha ha. I have refined building foundation dan. Chapter 128, Ruthless Devil Skill. Chapter 128 Ruthless Devil Skill. Tuesday regular release. Chen Shang had not opened the brilliant flame dragon furnace, but he was convinced that there was a building foundation dan inside it. In the midst of his laughter, both his eyes shed tears as only he was aware on how much torture he had gone through to achieve this result. 19 years old, and he had not yet refined a high-grade spirit-level dan, but he had directly refined a building foundation dan. Even Su Meiyao was very, very shocked. Originally she had wanted Chen Shang to completely refine all the herbs he possessed before once again refining after the new herbs had grown out. In this way, he would eventually be successful. She had expected him to require at least 3 or 5 years as she had refined a profound level dan in a similar fashion. After Chen Shang laughed for a while, he fell down, asleep. He was extremely tired. Su Meiyao and Bai Yuyu went over and opened the brilliant flame dragon furnace. They saw a crystal dan with numerous golden and azure lines. This was the building foundation dan, and a high-grade quality one at that. In fact, most of the dans Chen Shang refined had been high-grade quality, which was extremely hard to achieve. The divine sense of this brat has actually reverted to its pinnacle state. No, it's even stronger than before. Bai Yuyu pressed her cold beautiful hands on Chen Zhang's forehead before shouting with surprise. It was also the first time Bai Yuyu had ever touched Chen Shang. However, only Chen Zhang's body needed to recuperate and rest. His mind was clearly aware. He could clearly feel Bai Yuyu's cold beautiful hands. It gave him a wonderful feeling and even put him in an absent-minded state. Junior sister, aren't you going to help him clean his body? I remember that you often use some dubious methods to reward him. Bai Yuyu said, revealing a smile with a hint of elegance on her face. Su Meiyao lightly snorted before softly laughing. Senior sister, this brat seems to like you more. Although he and me are more intimate, I feel as if he cares more about you. As such, when you're gentle towards him, this brat is happy to death. I guess he is rather desperate in order to win your favor. Bai Yuyu's complexion turned cold, yet that ice-cold white face of hers was slightly tinted red. She coldly replied, don't talk nonsense, you do not know how he looks at your body. He could not wait to strip off your clothes and push you down. Obviously he prefers you, right? Besides, last time you kissed him, it turned him into a pig. Su Meiyao just lightly laughed in response before directly stripping off Chen Zhang's clothes. Suddenly, Chen Shang was left with nothing on his body, yet while looking directly at him, Su Meiyao didn't even have a tint of red of her face. This brat is truly ruthless towards himself. However, his body looks much better compared to when we see it from inside the ring. Su Meiyao said with a mischievous smile while rinsing off the stains on Chen Zhang's body. Senior sister, come help me. We have already seen this brat's body, do you not want to do something for him now? Su Meiyao said with a soft laugh. Currently Chen Shang could not move his body after it had been badly tortured, but after hearing the conversations of the two girls, all sorts of complex and strange emotions surged in his heart. Bai Yuyu went over and coldly snorted, I do not know how many times I've seen his body, yet I am unable to dispel my anger. Although she said so, she still came up with a towel and carefully wiped Chen Zhang's stained body. Chen Shang secretly despised both of these female rogues. They stayed inside the ring and had actually repeatedly peeped on him from inside it. Of course, he was also somewhat happy. After all, both beauties had seen his body many times. He suddenly felt somewhat cheap. Meanwhile they were complacent looking at him. Senior sister, I worry that one day you will not need me. Su Meiyao said. Her pretty face was filled with a worried expression as she and Bai Yuyu were cleaning Chen Zhang's robust body. Bai Yuyu was silent for a while, before sighing, when my great hatred has been resolved, I will disperse my ruthless devil skill. At that time, you have to protect me. Su Meiyao revealed a smile, don't worry, at that time this brat will definitely protect you. While speaking, she patted Chen Zhang's chest. Bai Yuyu no longer spoke. She knew that Chen Shang would certainly be very strong in future, and it would be no problem for him to protect her. But at the same time, she was worried that when she had no strength, no one would care about her. Su Meiyao said, Senior sister, Master only cultivated the ruthless devil skill because of us and it lead to his own demise. I do not want you to turn out like that. I know, you do not need to worry about me. I have a sense of moderation. Bai Yuyu's complexion became somewhat complicated. Chen Shang had not expected these pair of sisters to have this kind of story, but he always felt that Su Meiyao had hid some things from Bai Yuyu. Chen Shang recovered very quickly. Just as Su Meiyao and Bai Yuyu were helping him clean his body, he suddenly sat up. Thanks for both sisters' concerns. Chen Shang smiled, before taking out his clothes and putting it on. Su Meiyao and Bai Yuyu had touched Chen Zhang's body over and over. They had not intended to tell this to Chen Shang, but he had suddenly woken up. This made them somewhat angry and ashamed. Both of their enchanting and cold faces were fully blushing. Both of the beauties were grinding their teeth while staring at Chen Shang. You were awake? Bai Yuyu coldly asked. Previously, they had been conversing and done nothing, but it was seldomly this shameful for her. Chen Shang giggled and said, Nope, I just woke up. I had not thought both sisters would be so considerate and personally help me take a bath. Tell me honestly, have you or have you not heard what junior sister and I were talking about before? Bai Yuyu's voice and complexion instantly went below absolute zero as invisible slaughter chi spread open, making Chen Shang tremble. Yes, but I did not do so intentionally. I had already lost sense of my body, but my divine sense still remained. Chen Shang truthfully replied. Seeing Bai Yuyu's complexion becoming more ugly, he quickly said, Sister Yuyu, I will never speak about you peeping on me, and I'll definitely be there to protect you. I know what the ruthless devil's skill can do to people. I'm also worried about you. Forget it. Bai Yuyu closed her eyes and took a deep breath. Thinking of the shameful things she said before, her face could not help but become a little hot. Bai Yuyu had soon tried to forget, but Su Meiyao had not. She snorted to hide her shyness, and came beside Chen Shang and pinched his arm. But she did not use much of her strength because it was Chen Shang. Wasting my good intentions for you. To think you even intentionally pretended to be asleep just to tease me and senior sister. Su Meiyao angrily said. It was the first time Chen Shang had seen her so angry, but strangely it was captivating and made her look even more enchanting. Chen Shang secretly praised it in his heart. Sister Meiyao, you look really nice even when you're angry. Chen Shang didn't know what was wrong with him, but he could not help but blurt out the truth. This made Su Meiyao angrily stomp in response. Chen Shang scratched his head, grinned and asked, Two sisters, where does my body look good, and how many times have you looked? Bai Yuyu did not answer and just sat there with her eyes closed, pretending to have not heard the question. Su Meiyao was also speechless. Could it be they were going to be forced to say they were bored and that was why they would secretly look at him? Later on you're not allowed to mention this. Bai Yuyu coldly ordered. Although she actually didn't care much about it, she still acted domineering, in order to avoid Chen Zhang's continued probing of this topic. Su Meiyao snorted and changed the subject. Tell me about the process during your alchemy. Why did your divine sense suddenly revert back to its pinnacle state? Speaking of this, Chen Shang was also puzzled and he quickly described what had occurred during that time. You really saw a baby? Bai Yuyu hurriedly asked as she came beside Chen Shang. Chen Shang nodded his head and Su Meiyao also came over with a look of shock as she glanced at Bai Yuyu. Relax, do not move. I am going to take a look at your consciousness. Bai Yuyu extended both of her hands and placed them above Chen Shang's cheeks. Chen Zhang's face was being stroked by a pair of cold and soft hands and made him secretly shout, Cool, Sister Yuyu, it feels comfortable when you touch my face. Don't talk nonsense. Bai Yuyu coldly replied in a low voice. Chapter 129, True Martial Realm. Chapter 129 True Martial Realm. Bonus chapter for 3,000 readers on novel updates, next bonus chapter at 3,100. Both of the beauties were leaning against Chen Shang as he was blandly breathing in their body fragrance. He was enjoying Bai Yuyu's beautiful hands as they transmitted a cool feeling, and he wished that this feeling could last just a little bit longer. After a short moment, Bai Yuyu sucked in a mouthful of air and retracted her hands. Nodding towards Su Meiyao, it's true, I saw that baby. Su Meiyao was surprised as a slight smile appeared on her face. Then she too pressed her hands on the sides of Chen Zhang's cheeks and closed her eyes. Chen Shang was looking closely at that enchanting and mesmerizing face of Su Meiyao. He could not help but gradually move his sight downwards before the view made him absent-minded. Two snow-white lumps were squeezed causing deep ravines. It was so beautiful that he could not help but want to lightly bite on them. In the end, just what is that baby? Chen Shang asked uncertainly. Su Meiyao squeezed his face before happily laughing. That is the appearance of you when you were but a child, and at the same time it is also your divine sense state and is somewhat similar to your soul. However, it is called a spirit and is basically the combined form of your divine sense and soul. Is it very formidable? Chen Shang, seeing Su Meiyao laughing with happiness, knew that this was definitely not a common thing. Very formidable, you have entered the first stage of Shinto. Bai Yu nodded her head towards him. I hope that what you just promised me was not just empty talk. TLN. Shinto, Shen Dao Xian Dao, way of spirit. Like martial arts Wu Dao, it is a way of cultivating your spirit. Shinto is a Japanese term, can know about it in the wiki. Shinto. Chen Xian was confused, but he saw that Bai Yu had a bizarre warm expression in her eyes when she looked at him, and he knew that he had gained Bai Yu's recognition. This made him very excited. Just as Su Meiyu had said before, he indeed slightly preferred Bai Yu. He didn't know why, but he always got the feeling that Bai Yu, this ice-cold beauty, made others feel very much affection and love towards her. Shinto is using the spirit to enter the Tao. It is a way of cultivation for your divine sense. It is different from martial arts, Wu Dao, as martial arts is mainly used to release the power of your body. Meanwhile Shinto is releasing the power of your spirit. If you cultivate it to a certain point, your spirit would even be able to leave your body and wander in each world, one by one. It would be invisible and stateless, yet it possesses Armageddon might. This is the lifetime goal and strived for by many strong martial artists. Bai Yu said with a look of yearning along with a sliver of helplessness in her eyes. This was because she cultivated using the ruthless devil skill, and if it was not dispersed later she would become someone without the 7 emotions and 6 desires. Although at that time she would also be extremely powerful. TLN. 7 emotions and 6 desires Qi Qing Lu Yu. 7 emotions Qi Qing, happiness, anger, sadness, joy, love, hate and desire. 6 desires Lu Yu, eyes i.e. from what you see, ears i.e. from what you hear, nose i.e. from what you smell, tongue i.e. from what you taste, body i.e. from what you touch and passion from heart. N. So basically the senses plus passion. Closing square bracket. Imagine you were sitting alone at home while your spirit drifts between heaven and earth, flies into the sky and enters into the ground. Omnipotent yet not any weaker than the strength of your body, can you imagine how formidable that is? As long as you need to you would be able to shape your own body using the world's spirit chi. Su Meiyao was very excited and her beautiful face was brimming with a tender and beautiful smile. She too had much longing for that state. Undead and indestructible, Chen Xiang was mind-boggled and could not help but mutter. Correct. In order to enter Shinto you would need to have a very rare and favorable condition which you have just achieved. That baby is the newborn state of your spirit. After it reaches adulthood that baby will have the exact same appearance as you. Bai Yu said. In the future you simply need to cultivate your divine sense. As for specifically how to do so, neither me nor senior sister are clear about it. I also believe that not many people would know how to either because very few people have cultivated this state. Su Meiyao was somewhat regretful. Chen Zhang's mood was very good at this time. Not only was he able to refine the building foundation Dan, but his divine sense had also advanced by leaps and bounds. In addition to all of this he had also entered Shinto. Of course, what made him happy the most was the fact that Bai Yu, this ice-cold beauty, now had a much better attitude towards him. This is all due to the encouragement from both you sisters. Although at that time you told me to give up, I know in your heart that you very much wanted me to be successful. I also did not want to disappoint you too, so I was able to break through the limit of my divine sense. Chen Xiang smiled. It didn't hurt nor tickle to flatter the two beauties. Continue your alchemy and quickly enter the true martial realm. Bai Yu said and then stepped aside. Su Meiyao came to Bai Yu's side and leaned against her body and embraced her waist. Su Meiyao's face had a very worried look. Chen Xiang was now left with 7 sets of herbs. He had also recovered, so he seized the time to do alchemy, and he did not to waste another minute. 3 days passed and since then Chen Xiang had successfully refined 4 building foundation dans. Although he had failed 3 times, he was already very satisfied. Chen Xiang could not help but sigh while looking at the 5 building foundation dans. He had heard that a dan costs a good few 10,000 crystal stones, but there was no standard price tag. Ordinarily the only way to get one was through an auction or by personally requesting one from an alchemist. After Chen Xiang swallowed a dan he began to cultivate. All the true qi was compressed in the true element grains inside the beasts in his dantian. Chen Xiang hadn't noticed that he had been missing for more than 8 months now. This was more than enough time for him to elude his pursuers and return to the extreme martial sect, yet they had received no information of him. Many people speculated that Chen Xiang was so seriously injured after the escape that he was unable to heal his wounds and died in the wilderness, his corpse eaten by the demon beasts. Chen Shang had been hiding in the mountainside and cultivating. He had already finished eating the 5 building foundation dans. The true qi in the building foundation dan was beyond what he had speculated and turned up to be so much more that it led to there being a large period of time needed to fully refine it. It was night time. After a heavy snowfall, the entire mountain forest was snow white. A silver moon lay hanging in the night sky, illuminating the white snow. Cold wind whistled through the forest as a man wearing a black sturdy outfit appeared. He casted a high-level qinggong and treaded on the tree leaves, skimming past the top of the forest. His speed was extremely fast, furthermore his steps left no trace on top of the pure unblemished white snow. At this time Chen Shang was enjoying the rush and was releasing all the excitement in his heart. He had been depressed after staying in the mountainside for so long. Now he had finally broken through to the true martial realm and became the youngest martial artist to ever do so. He flew all the way while roaring at the same time. His roar echoed in the silent mountain forest and shook the leaves of the trees. Inside the 5 divine beasts within Chen Zhang's dantian, 7 of the true element grains had become extremely bright, while 3 element grains from the azure dragon beast form were now brightly lit. This was all due to the large amount of true qi from the building foundation dans. When he was congealing, it allowed all 5 of the divine beasts to congeal 10 bright true element grains. He could be considered in the 2nd level of the true martial realm, however he was actually only in the 1st level. His strength remained beyond that of those in the same level, even among true martial realm martial artists. Chen Shang quickly left and headed towards Fragrance City. He wanted to buy a lot of materials for the White Jade Dan and the True Elemental Dan. After he learned how to successfully refine them, he would go and obtain the level 4 alchemist certificate before returning to the extreme martial sect. Along the way, Chen Shang occasionally threw a true qi dan in the air before catching it with his mouth. In his eyes, true qi dans could only serve as snacks. The true martial realm's strength is truly not in the same realm. I feel like I could casually demolish an entire mountain, Chen Shang said with excitement. He opened his mouth to catch a recently thrown true qi dan in the air. Suddenly a white silhouette flashed before him in the air. That thing robbed the true qi dan. Bastard, you actually dared to steal what belongs to me. Currently Chen Shang had no place to test his strength. He was still in a good mood, but now that someone or something had bothered him it would be the perfect practice target for him. Chen Shang released his divine sense and soon noticed that thing was quickly fleeing straight ahead. He quickly released the vermilion bird fire wing and soon caught up. He did so because he could not catch up with that thing just by relying on his feet. What the hell is that thing? It's actually so fast. Chen Shang could not help but shout in surprise. He was now in the true martial realm, yet that thing still ran faster than him. If he didn't have these wings, it would be extremely difficult for him to catch up. Soon Chen Shang saw down below in the forest a small white squirrel leaping across the trees with an incredibly fast speed. The culprit turned out to be an extremely fast demon beast. It's not an ordinary demon beast. Be a little careful, its speed is very terrifying. Su Meiyao exhorted. Chapter 130, White Dragon. Chapter 130 White Dragon. Bonus chapter for 250 votes. Next bonus chapter at 300. Chen Shang quickly dived down and released his dragon aura because most demon beasts would cower in terror at a dragon's might. After that white squirrel sensed the pressure of a dragon, it could not help but be distracted for a moment and hit the trunk of a tree, creating a very comical scene. Just as Chen Shang was preparing to smack a deadly palm towards that squirrel, a burst of white light soared from that squirrel to his surprise. But that white light soon disappeared, revealing a white-robed little girl who had a fair face and delicate skin, sitting cleanly onto the snow. She was using her cute little hands to hold her head, flat mouth and tears on the edge of her eyes. She looked like she was about to cry and looked very adorable. Seeing a squirrel suddenly turn into a 7 or 8-year-old lovely little girl, Chen Shang could not help but be taken aback. Although he heard that demon beasts could change forms, only very strong ones could do so. But this furtive squirrel, apart from having extremely high speed, did not look strong at all. Why did you steal my true qi dan? Chen Shang asked with a cold face. Although she was hateful, she was still a lovely little girl. However, Chen Shang didn't have a nice expression on his face as he glared at her. I was hungry, you confused me and knocked my head, it hurts, I hate you. That little girl looked up and 2 drops of tears had already dropped down from her watery eyes. Biting her lips she glared at Chen Shang. Chen Shang suddenly caught a glimpse of 2 small things on the little girl's head. It looked very similar to small antlers. Antlers, no, was it not a dragon's horn? Chen Shang quickly associated the two because he recalled that 8 months ago, a dragonling had been born. Was this little girl a transformation of that dragonling? Dragon. This little girl is actually a dragon. Anyway, no matter what means, we must keep this dragon. Su Meiyao's voice became very excited and quickly exclaimed. She is strong, although she is a dragonling she is by no means weak. Bai Yuyu warned. Suddenly, Chen Zhang's mind became blank. He had totally not expected to encounter this dragonling. After the shock passed, he quickly calmed down. He then leaned over, took a few grains of true qi dan and held it towards the girl. His face had a look of shame and with a gentle smile he said, "Little sister, I'm sorry. If you had told me you were hungry I would not have chased you. I thought you were a thief." That little girl sniffed the 5 true qi dans in Chen Zhang's hands. Her tears didn't fall again as her big eyes rotated a bit. Like lightning, her hands reached over and snatched away the true qi dans from Chen Zhang's palm. Seeing such a speed made Chen Shang suck his own tongue. "Can you forgive me now?" Chen Shang sat back and watched the little girl's delicate and cute little face. After that little girl devoured those 5 true qi dans with relish, she revealed a sweet smile. "After you give me 10 more of those things I'll forgive you." Chen Shang had not expected this little girl to actually be so smart at such a young age. It was as if this dragonling had not just been born recently. Is it that after a dragon was born, their wisdom would develop very quickly? Chen Shang had a lot of true qi dans, he took out 20 of them and handed them all over. The little girl soon ate them all. At this time, the little girl had an irresistible expression in her eyes as she waited for Chen Shang. A neat and pitiful appearance, it was so potent that it made Su Meiyao anxious and she almost ran out to hug that little girl. Chen Shang was now akin to taking out candy to beguile a child. He once again took out 10 true qi dans before asking, "Little sister, how can you transform?" "My name is Sister Long, Long Zizi, do not call me little sister." The little girl interrupted him. "TLN, Long Zizi equals dragon sister. Oh, Sister Long, why can you transform into a little squirrel?" Chen Shang asked. The little girl suddenly giggled, "Just a moment ago, you called me Sister Long. This brother is really stupid, looking at you being so stupid I will tell you. I'm a dragon, whatever beast I see, I can transform into them, formidable right." Chen Zhang's mouth slightly twitched. He had actually been cheated. He originally thought this little girl was smart, but had completely not expected her to be so high profile to the point where she revealed that she was a dragon. "Moron, you're not thinking why I dared to say I am a dragon, are you?" The little girl mischievously laughed. Chen Shang was once again taken back by surprise. Just a moment he had indeed thought of this. "Fool, I'm very clever. I also know that you can tell that I'm a dragon." The little girl grabbed a handful of snow, and squeezed it into a snowball. With a mischievous laugh, she threw it straight towards Chen Shang. Just before Chen Shang was about to react, that snowball smashed right on his face. It made the little girl even more happy. "My name is Long Shui, Long Shui, I am a newly born white dragon." Long Shui mischievously laughed and said, "Previously I heard someone tell you that I'm a dragon, and you should do anything to keep me. Am I right?" Chen Shang was shocked, Bai Yuyu and Su Meiyao were shocked as well. That dragonling girl could actually hear their voices despite them being inside the ring. Long Shui looked at Chen Zhang's hand. Although there was an invisible ring, it seemed as if this dragonling could actually see it. Chen Shang suddenly had a feeling that he was being completely seen through by this little girl. Good, very formidable, yin and yang divine vein, Shinto infant soul, and your cultivated martial art is also our dragon family's most powerful, dragon-slaying divine martial art, the Tai Chi subduing dragon divine exercise. You also seem to be in possession of the Azure Dragon slaughtering devil blade that was refined with the help of our dragon family's Azure Dragon. Long Shui's small face was filled with shock. She had not expected in this world that a single human had actually collected all these heaven-defying things. Chen Shang gulped, he was ever more surprised than the little girl inside his heart. This feeling was a little bit uncomfortable because he had just been totally seen through by this young girl. You should be Chen Shang who was being searched by those group of people from before. In the forest I had heard many people mentioning your name. I know that you're a very powerful guy. Long Shui licked her lips and once more used a hungry expression as she looked at Chen Shang. Chen Shang gulped, in his heart he was even more surprised. This feeling was a little bit uncomfortable, because he had been totally seen through by this girl. Chen Shang was shocked. After a sigh, he took out a box of truchi dan. Little girl, although I am not a good person, you will absolutely not find a single good soul who can give you this kind of thing to eat every day. Chen Shang smiled. He calmed himself down and could see this little girl also had ideas to be together with him. Indeed, if I expose my identity as a dragon, it would become very troublesome for me. You have so many good things, but you should not have any ideas to fight with me. Nom nom nom. Long Shui nodded her head while she ate those truchi dans like she was eating rice. It was clear that she had been hungry for a very long time. I can give you these things to eat, but I also have much better things, provided that you give me some help. Although you look like a little girl, you are by no means stupid. Chen Shang said. Long Shui stuffed those truchi dans inside her mouth. While chewing, she also spoke at the same time, looking very cute. This made Chen Shang unable to help himself as he touched her cheeks. Although I don't know how you cultivated out Shinto infant soul, I know that you definitely don't know a way to cultivate it, however I do. You should know that we dragons from the very start do not cultivate our bodies but instead practice Shinto until we are able to congeal out our bodies, only then will we break our egg shells. Chapter 131, Mark of the Dragoness. Chapter 131 Mark of the Dragoness. People are seldom able to cultivate Shinto, even Su Meiyao and Bai Yuyu did not know how to do so. If there was no guide and he were to carelessly cultivate, it would be easy to take a wrong turn. Seeing Long Shui being able to transform into a squirrel, Chen Shang believed what she just said was the truth because such a thing could only be achieved with the invisible and stateless spirit. I call this the 72 transformations. This is a way to manipulate spiritual power that only those who can cultivate Shinto can use. This is what I learned as soon as I broke out of my egg shell. It should be an inheritance passed down by my parents when I was born. They taught me a lot of things and most of them are inside my head. Long Shui with a delicate and sweet voice complacently said. Do you know that dragon slaying divine martial technique? Chen Shang asked. In his heart he was moved. Of course I do, Long Shui replied in a delicate and sweet voice. So you agree to cooperate with me? Although you are not a good person, you cannot be considered as a bad one either, as such I reluctantly agree. Long Shui replied. She extended her delicate and lovely pinky finger. Quickly, do pinky promise. After the pinky promise, we cannot go back on our words. This childish act made Chen Shang secretly stifle a giggle inside, but he still extended his pinky finger and hooked it with Long Shui's. But who could expect that when their two pinky fingers hooked up with each other a bright light would suddenly appear? Alright, this is our dragon family and humankind contract. Later on if you try to lay your vicious hands on me then you will definitely be in a lot of pain. Long Shui giggled with a mischievous smile as she extended her beautiful little hands as if begging for truchi dans. Currently in Chen Zhang's opinion the truchi dans were indeed basically jelly beans, which were now being eaten like snacks by this little dragoness. Little girl, in the future are you going to follow alongside me? Why don't you go inside this ring? Chen Shang asked. He intended to have this adorable and lovely girl accompany Su Meiyao and Bai Yuyu inside the ring and also play with them. Long Shui shook her little head and replied, it wouldn't work. I'm unable to enter the space inside storage equipment, they have no effect on me because I cultivate Shinto. Obviously Chen Shang could not allow this little dragoness to always follow beside him. Not even mentioning that it would be rather inconvenient, her safety was also a very big issue. Do not worry, I have a way to solve this. Long Shui laughed before she suddenly transformed into a white glow that shot towards Chen Zhang's arm. He only felt some warmth on his arm before a very strong power could be felt coming from his arm. He was very shocked, this warm type of feeling was spread out from his left arm to the left part of his chest. He quickly took off his clothes and saw a lifelike white dragon bearing fangs and brandishing claws that twisted from his left arm to his left chest. It was as if a tattoo had been drawn on his upper left body using special means, the entire mark was exuding white light and looked very beautiful. Combined with Chen Zhang's robust muscles, the white dragon tattoo made him exude a bizarre and unique charm. Of course, the thing Chen Shang was most shocked about was Long Shui's strength. He could clearly tell how powerful she was and it was many times more than him. I'm formidable, right? Like this, I will not be in your way when I follow you. Long Shui said in a tender voice. She was actually able to transmit her voice very clearly although it looked like the white dragon tattoo was talking to Chen Shang. When there are other people around don't say anything. Chen Shang exhorted. At this time he was somewhat worried because this little dragoness was clearly a bit naughty and very cunning. I know that. I'm not stupid like you, my human brother. Long Shui replied as she smiled mischievously. This time she used her divine sense to respond. Chen Shang gave a low humph before breaking into a gallop and proceeded straight for Fragrance City. Not long after, Long Shui started chattering continuously with Su Meiyao and Bai Yuyu. This was the first time since Chen Shang got acquainted with Su Meiyao and Bai Yuyu that he saw them talk to other people. Of course, this is only because Long Shui was now following Chen Shang. Even if Fragrance City was covered in the white snow, it still looked beautiful. The entire city was drifting with a soothing fragrance, and it was very refreshing. Not many crystal stones were left over from the last time Chen Shang sold the metal spirit fruit. While there was a set of materials left for refining a building foundation dan, it was for him to plant as a seed to use in the future. Fortunately he had refined a lot of true qi dans. He took out the remaining 200 as the rest had already been given to Long Shui for her to eat. A true qi dan is equal to 500 crystal stones, so 200 dans was precisely 100,000 crystal stones. Chen Shang went to Danxiang Tower to sell them. This time too Mrs. Li was responsible for trading and recognized Chen Shang in a single glance. After all, she was the governor's wife and had seen his portrait pop up many times. Chen Shang had disappeared in the vicinity of Fragrance City. Obviously this matter was of great concern for the governor as the extreme martial sect's dean personally seeked him out and requested him to help find Chen Shang. Mrs. Li, I've come once again, this time with 200 true qi dans. Chen Shang said with a slight smile. Are you Chen Shang, young Master Chen? Mrs. Li asked. There was clear surprise in her eyes because it was rumored that Chen Shang had already been killed. She had not expected him to suddenly appear in front of her and even take out 200 true qi dans to sell. Just after reaching Fragrance City, Chen Shang rushed directly to Danxiang Tower. He didn't get to learn about what had occurred during his seclusion. With his advancement of strength and divine sense, he could now clearly probe Mrs. Li's strength. It turns out that she was a true martial realm martial artist of the second level. Mrs. Li can still recognize this brat. I'm truly honored. Chen Shang was slightly surprised in his heart, but still responded with a smile. It's really hard to not recognize you now that the beast martial sect placed a 300,000 bounty on your head. In order to find you many people turned the city and its outskirts inside out. Mrs. Li exclaimed. Chen Zhang's brows wrinkled. Humph. Anyone who want to take my head for the crystal stones reward can, come and try. No matter how many come to try and take my head they will all end up dead. While he stated this, a huge amount of slaughter qi was released, making even Mrs. Li retreat a few steps back. Her eyes were filled with fear. She had no expected such a young person to contain such heavy and dense slaughter qi. If she was an ordinary person, she would have definitely fainted from the pressure and resulting fear from this level of slaughter qi. Chen Zhang's strength also made Mrs. Li somewhat doubtful. She was unable to clearly sense Chen Zhang's power, but she felt that he was clearly a lot stronger than before. Here's 100,000 crystal stones. Right, young master, I have already inquired the dean about the person you mentioned last time. If you want to see her, you would have to stay here for a while. It would be a lot safer for you to stay here actually. Danxiang Taoyuan and the extreme martial sect have very good relations. Also, your dean said that if you came back here, I would have to try my best to keep you here. Mrs. Li regained her wits and gradually said everything. She now finally understood Chen Zhang's worth and why even the extreme martial sect's dean had personally come to pay a visit. Chen Shang nodded his head and laughed, then thanks a lot. I'll go buy some herbs. If that girl called Hua Yuyan comes to find me, feel free to directly call me, don't worry about bothering me. 20 sets of white jade dan herbs, the total cost was 40,000 crystal stones. 20 sets of true elemental dan herbs, and the total cost was 30,000 crystal stone. In just a short moment, Chen Shang spent well over half of his total crystal stones. However, Chen Shang was sure he would be able to smoothly refine the two different types of high-grade spirit level dans. To Chen Zhang's surprise, he was allocated in the 20th floor. It was said that all the people who resided on this floor were of a noble background. While not all of them were outstanding alchemists, they were at least martial artists on the same level as Mrs. Li. This gesture made Chen Shang feel flattered and also put him at ease. At the very least, it was indeed very safe here. TLN. Hi guys, I'm a bit busy till Tuesday, So any missed chapter or any bonus chapter due, I'll make up for it either on Tuesday or definitely on Wednesday. Thanks for your support. Chapter 132, Hua Shangyu. Chapter 132 Hua Shangyu. After Chen Shang successfully refined the building foundation Dan, this precious low-grade profound level Dan, it would now be smooth and easy for him to refine the white jade Dan and true elemental Dan. After only a few failed attempts, he was successful in refining the latter out. It also just took 3 days of time. White jade Dan, 15. True elemental Dan, 20. Whenever he refined a set of herbs to make the true elemental Dan, the little greedy dragoness, Long Shui, took away half of them. However, with just one set of herbs, he was able to refine 4 true elemental Dans. Chen Shang was profusely sweating inside his private room, but a familiar sense wafted into his nose before he saw the stunning beauty who was reclined on his bed. The girl wore a light pink veil which covered her crystal white skin and voluptuous body. She bore a magnificent and noble temperament that added to her already mesmerizing charm. Chen Shang would never be able to forget this alluring and bewitching figure that belonged to the mature, tender, and breathtaking beauty in front of him. He immediately recognized that this enchanting, noble and dignified girl was Hua Yuyan whom he had met in the secular world. "This is my bed, quickly get off." Chen Shang didn't know what to say so he unconsciously blurted out this sentence. With a sweet smile hanging on her beautiful face, her pretty eyes were filled with sorrow and a special type of hate as she gradually got off his bed. She softly laughed, "I know that you are regretting not accepting me as your maidservant. Aren't you very upset?" Chen Shang indeed had some regret in his heart, but his face didn't reveal an ounce of it. He indifferently said, "I've found you, now tell me your real name." "Hua Shangyu, Hua Shangyu." The beauty took out a fragrant silk towel, and wiped the sweat off Chen Zhang's forehead. She lightly chuckled, "Doesn't my name sound nice? TLN. Hua Shangyu, Hua flower, Shang fragrance, Yu moon. Moon of flower fragrance. Your name sounds good, and you're quite beautiful. You're also powerful. In the end, who are you?" Chen Shang shook his head and sighed as he bluntly stated his question. Hua Shangyu was sitting beside a table as she slowly lowered a teapot. In each of her gestures a unique charm was overflowing, the scene was very pleasing to the eye. "I'm just a maidservant, it just so happens that my master is Danxiang Taoyuan's dean. However, I can leave Danxiang Taoyuan whenever I want to, but it's just that this little miss still hasn't been able to find a good liege." Hua Shangyu sent a coquettish glance towards Chen Shang. Chen Shang knew he had nothing which could been seen fit by this woman, yet he also remembered previously that this woman truly intended to become his maidservant, but for what reason would she do so? Hua Shangyu stood up, standing by the window, her back was facing towards Chen Shang. She faintly sighed, "Chen Shang, recently you've created a lot of commotion. That booty is truly marvelous." A voice was suddenly heard. Chen Shang was startled. As for Hua Shangyu, she started blushing red all over her pretty face. She immediately turned her head and shockingly stared at Chen Shang with her pretty eyes wide open. This voice sounded exactly like Chen Shang, but it was not spoken by him. Its source was that little mischievous dragoness Long Shui. Chen Shang gulped and ruthlessly smacked his left chest. He had not expected Long Shui had this sort of ability and could perfectly imitate someone's voice. Chen Shang really wasn't worried for no reason at all previously. "Did you just say something?" Hua Shangyu asked with a frown. She was sure that she had not heard wrongly, yet she also felt that Chen Shang would not say such frivolous words, in spite of the fact that he usually had a nasty expression in his eyes when he looked at her. Chen Shang had a wry smile on his face. How could he say it was not him? But then again, who would he say spoke? This loss, even if he didn't want to suffer, he still had to own up to it. "I just felt like it, but didn't express well. I meant to say your body is very good." Chen Shang quickly explained. "Humph, your guts have increased immensely, you even dare to verbally molest me." Hua Shangyu tenderly spat. In her heart, she was strangely excited. Chen Shang poured himself a cup of tea. While drinking it, he used his divine sense to warn that naughty little dragoness, "Girl, you are so dead, don't act so unreasonably." That sort of statement nearly gave me a heart attack. "I only said what I felt was true." Long Shui giggled. Such a beautiful woman should be flirted with. "Chen Shang, you have provoked Elder Dan during your stay in the extreme martial sect. She is very powerful. What are your plans for the future?" Hua Shangyu asked with a strange expression in her eyes as she looked at Chen Shang. "What plan do I need? That woman would not dare to go against me now, hey hey." Chen Shang, Thinking about Elder Dan having to call him martial uncle, made him secretly delighted in his heart. Hua Shangyu frowned and walked over to Chen Zhang's side. Why? This is my confidential secret, I can't tell you. Chen Shang replied. His face was brimming with a triumphant smile. Sister Hua, don't you have high and powerful authority within Danxiang Taoyuan? Chen Shang was worried about her continual probing and immediately changed the subject. Just simply call me Shangyu or else I'll ignore you. Hua Shangyu pressed her jade finger on Chen Zhang's lips, making his mind sway. Shangyu. Okay. Hua Shangyu softly laughed. That's good. I just managed some very headache-inducing things in Danxiang Taoyuan. Usually I'm very busy. I specially took some time out just to see you. Shangyu, why are you so good to me? Chen Shang curiously asked. He could not think of a reason why he gained this girl's favor. Are you not even confident about your own charm? Hua Shangyu affectionately and lovingly looked at Chen Shang, causing his heartbeat to rapidly speed up. Of course not, but in front of you I don't have the confidence. Chen Shang flung his head. Hua Shangyu, seeing such appearance from Chen Shang, softly giggled. She no longer harassed Chen Shang and listened to him talk about the things happened to him during the past few days. He also told her about his experience in the extreme martial sect. They talked late into night. Chen Shang had just finished with his alchemy, so he was even more tired than usual, but still endured up until now. It's late, I ought to return to my own room. Hua Shangyu yawned. She stood up and just as she turned around, she heard Chen Zhang's voice. Stay, let's sleep together. That naughty Long Shui once again imitated Chen Zhang's voice. Chen Zhang's mouth was twitching because this was not spoken by him, but rather Long Shui. He was once again teased by Long Shui. Suddenly 2 enchanting blush marks emerged on Hua Shangyu's pretty cheeks. She turned around and lightly smacked Chen Zhang's head, angrily scolded, "You little brat. You're getting worse and worse, also you have a fiancé." Long Shui's soft giggles resounded in Chen Zhang's mind. He could not wait to get a hold of her and slap her little ass until it is swollen red for daring to tease him. It was okay right now since it was Hua Shangyu, but what if this little dragoness acted up when it came to Elder Dan? His good days would come to an end. After thinking so, Chen Shang could not help but feel chills run down his spine. He now thought he had wrapped himself in a cocoon of trouble by asking this naughty little dragoness to follow him. I meant that you should sleep here on my bed while I cultivate meditating. Chen Shang explained with a wry smile. Humph, no need. Hua Shangyu lightly snorted, but in her heart she was very happy. This is because previously she was not able to draw Chen Shang to Danxiang Taoyuan, even resorting to selling her own body and allowed Chen Shang to see all of her, but she was still not successful. Yet now she saw Chen Shang was regretting his decision, and very much wanted her. She was secretly pleased. Chen Shang naturally didn't know her thoughts as he watched Hua Shangyu leave. Then he hastily shut the door, took off his clothes, and started ruthlessly hammering the white dragon tattoo on his body. It hurts, it hurts. Even after hearing Long Shui's tender cries, Chen Shang continued to beat the mark on his chest. However, it didn't take long before he heard her giggle. Stupid. Your beating doesn't hurt me, you're just hurting yourself. You're truly an idiot, just look at how you're seriously beating yourself, ha ha ha. Little girl, don't challenge my bottom line or else you won't get any dans to eat from me in the future. Chen Shang did not say so angrily but rather dismissively. He knew the more angry he sounded the more it would make this little girl happy. No, I was just playing a prank on you. I admit my mistake, Long Shui said in a low voice. Chapter 133, Alchemist's Assessment. Chapter 133, Alchemist's Assessment. Regular chapter for Saturday. We missed one chapter and we have 2 in queue for 3,100 reading lists and 300 votes. Thanks for the support, smiley face. As long as the situation was not serious, Chen Shang would not look into. In the past he had learned from Su Meiyao, if there were some special circumstances, you could make this little dragoness lend her fearsome strength to yourself, and if he could fuse her strength with his own strength, that would be but very terrifying. Of course, the most Chen Shang was looking forward to was the fact that Long Shui would teach him the cultivation method of Shinto. But currently his infant soul was too young, and at least it would have to be 1 to 2 years old. If Chen Shang let those immortals from the heavenly realm know he had raised a dragon, and he was also complaining about it, he would certainly be scolded to death. He even got the advantage this cheaply and was still not appreciating it. Chen Shang had successfully refined the White Jade Dan and the True Elemental Dan, so he planned to take the Level 4 Alchemist's assessment tomorrow, and become a Level 4 alchemist. The next day, Chen Shang came to know Hua Shangyu had already left the Danxiang Tower and returned to Danxiang Taoyuan. If he had something important to say, he could let Mrs. Li know. Chen Shang suddenly felt Hua Shangyu was not just a simple maidservant, otherwise Mrs. Li would not be so respectful towards her. Chen Shang arrived at the location for the assessment registration, and after he arrived he found out about the new improved standards of the alchemist's assessment. Such as, level 3 alchemists now needed to know how to refine 3 kinds of middle-grade spirit-level dans, and level 4 alchemists needed to know how to refine 3 kinds of high-grade spirit-level dans. An extra kind of dan had been added to the previous requirement. Chen Shang only knew how to refine 2 kinds of high-grade spirit-level dans, and a low-grade profound-level dan, the building foundation dan. Danxiang Taoyuan's assessments could be considered as very strict. You would only be given 1 set of herbs, and if you fail, you need to pay half the price of the herbs. And if you're successful, the dan is given to the Danxiang Taoyuan. Chen Shang found Mrs. Li, and after Mrs. Li came to know Hua Shangyu and Chen Shang relations were very good, she became respectful towards Chen Shang, and this sudden change in attitude made Chen Shang harder to adapt. Mrs. Li, I want to take part in the level 4 alchemist's assessment, but I now only know how to refine 2 high-grade spirit-level dans and a low-grade profound-level dan. I don't know whether or not I can also sign up. Chen Shang asked. What? Mrs. Li suspected she had gotten it wrong, and she looked at Chen Shang with a surprised look on her face. Chen Shang was just 20-year-old, and to her surprise he could actually refine 2 high-grade spirit-level dans and a low-grade profound-level dan. It was very hard to believe, and her heart was pounding faster and faster. She began to suspect Chen Shang was in the true martial realm, and she even guessed the low-grade profound-level dan Chen Shang knew was the building foundation dan. The building foundation dan and high-grade spirit-level dans had the same difficulty, and many alchemists already knew this. Mrs. Li also knew Chen Shang had purchased a good few amount of building foundation dan's materials. Is it okay if I replace a high-grade spirit-level dan with low-grade profound-level dan? Currently I don't have much time to learn refining a different kind of high-grade spirit-level dan. I must return to Extreme Martial Sect to participate in Extreme Martial Grand Tournament, said Chen Shang. Chen Shang only heard about the Extreme Martial Grand Tournament from Hua Shangyu last night, and he still had more than 10 days before it started. Extreme Martial Grand Tournament was a competition of alchemy as well as of martial arts. This exchanging martial art grand tournament was held once in a decade, and it was also a big test for all the disciples of the Extreme Martial Sect. Yes, but we currently lack materials like Azure Profound Fruit. As for others there is no problem. Although Mrs. Li was shocked, but there was no change in her expression. I have the Azure Profound Fruit. Chen Shang also had one, and it was originally left to be used as a seed, but he still had the Azure Profound tree in the Extreme Dan King courtyard, so he didn't need to worry about using it. That's good. The entire process would be supervised by me and 10 level 4 alchemists of Danxiang Tower. Do you agree? Mrs. Li asked. Chen Shang readily nodded his head, and then followed Mrs. Li for signing up. Finally he had the extra dan for the assessment. Chen Shang arrived at the 10th floor, and this floor was specialized for the assessment. Chen Shang saw those 10 level 4 alchemists, and all of them were old men with few white shiny hairs, each of them were highly respected. Mrs. Li had a very high respect for them, because these 10 level 4 alchemists were almost renowned, besides they were responsible for supplying a large number of dans to Danxiang Taoyuan, and all of them were above the true martial realm. Chen Shang after seeing them, respectfully gave a salute to all of them. These 10 old men usually were either refining dans or cultivating, and they rarely came outside. They were not aware of the outside matters, and when they learned that this immature brat in front of them was here for the level 4 alchemist's assessment, all of them could not help but reveal a contemptuous expression in their eyes. What made them despise him even more was when they came to know Chen Shang would actually refine 2 high-grade spirit-level dans and a low-grade profound-level dan. These old men themselves, for many years, were never able to successfully refine the building foundation dan. They certainly had the materials, but it just took a long time to gather them. Even all of us have not been successful, and this brat wants to refine. He doesn't know the immensity of heaven and earth, and it is simply a waste of an azure profound fruit. An old man said to another man in a low voice, his voice was full of contempt. When Chen Shang heard, he just laughed and didn't say anything. He had successfully refined the building foundation dan a good few times. Originally, these old men were all reluctant to waste their time supervising Chen Zhang's assessment, but after they heard from Mrs. Li he was Hua Xiangyu's friend, each of them were happy to stay, which made Chen Xiang even more doubtful regarding Hua Xiangyu's status. Hua Xiangyu said she was just one of the many maid servants of the deans, but her identity was a point higher. Chen Xiang took out the brilliant flame dragon furnace, and gave it to those impatient-looking old men to check. The brilliant flame dragon furnace just looked very beautiful, but it was very difficult to see where it was extraordinary. Chen Xiang already knew the rules of the alchemist's assessment, such as Chen Zhang's level 4 test. It was needed to be supervised by 10 level 4 alchemists. Of course, for a high-rank test, only 1 or 2 were simply needed, because high-rank alchemists were harder to find. Chen Xiang started refining a dan. He was refining the true elemental dan, and the herbs were all provided by Danxiang Tower while their quality was good. Chen Xiang performed very well, and in just half an hour he had successfully refined it. All right, refined a true elemental dan. Chen Xiang slightly exhaled, while wiping the sweat on his face. Those 10 old men looked at each other, and they had a "I don't believe it" look. How was it possible to refine in just half an hour? At least they couldn't. But Mrs. Li was convinced, because she knew Chen Zhang's deeds, and understood all the things Chen Xiang did were earth-shaking. She personally went over, opened the lid of the brilliant flame dragon furnace, and then saw 5 exquisitely carved, glittering white dans. Mrs. Li took a deep breath with surprise, and though she was not alchemist, she knew ordinarily only 4 true elemental dans were refined out from 1 set of herbs. And these 10 level 4 alchemists she found, most of them were only able to refine out 3. These 10 old men one by one gathered around, looked at those 5 true elemental dans with a questioning look. They had suspected Chen Xiang had somehow cheated. But when they took those true elemental dans in their hands, they were able to feel the dan was still hot, as well as the rich herb fragrance, which was the distinctive features of a dan that was just refined out. Their thin and old bodies could not help but shudder, and they all looked at Chen Xiang with wide open eyes, as if they had seen a monster. It was very hard for them to believe, a 20-year-old little guy could actually refine the true elemental dan, moreover 5 from 1 set of herbs. Chapter 134, Level 4 Alchemist. Chapter 134 Level 4 Alchemist. Sunday Regular Chapter. Who is your teacher? An old man, after taking a deep breath, asked. His voice actually sounded very respectful, and he looked at Chen Xiang with a look of admiration. At this time, all of them didn't dare to look down on Chen Xiang, and at the same time, they felt ashamed about their previous behavior. I'm a disciple of the Extreme Dan King Courtyard of the Extreme Martial Sect. I don't have a teacher, but Elder Dan would from time to time guide me. Chen Xiang calmly replied. After hearing his reply, these 10 old men's legs became soft, and they almost knelt from fear. Extreme Dan King Courtyard, although they had not seen it, its name reverberated like thunder. Simply because it was the residence of the Extreme Martial Sect's Dan King, and only someone authorized by Elder Dan could enter. Although Elder Dan was mysterious, her skill in alchemy was well renowned in the Qinwu mainland. Many alchemists believed Elder Dan had become a Dan King, but she was not. In fact, she was just a step away. Chen Xiang was the only exception who could enter the Extreme Dan King Courtyard. Mrs. Li had already heard that Chen Xiang had also taken in a level 3 alchemist, Yao Haisheng, as his apprentice. In Qinwu mainland, only 2 alchemists were the most excellent. One was the dean of Danxiang Taoyuan, and the other was Elder Dan from the Extreme Martial Sect. And both of them were also the most mysterious. Chen Xiang had the support of Elder Dan's guidance, and it could be clearly seen that Chen Xiang must be better than the others, otherwise, he would not be favored by Elder Dan. Chen Xiang was even more faster while refining the white jade dan, and also refined a lot of them. It once again gave a heart attack to these old men. They felt very ashamed and were unable to even lift their head due to the fact that they had previously looked down upon Chen Xiang. Chen Xiang rested for a moment, and then started refining the building foundation dan. 10 level 4 alchemists didn't dare to bat their eyes, looking at Chen Xiang quickly processing the herbs. The familiarity and speed by which he arranged those herbs made them secretly shocked in their hearts. They could see Chen Xiang had refined many times, at least more than them, otherwise, he would not be able to distribute the herbs so evenly. As of now, when those old men looked at Chen Xiang, their expressions were as if they were looking at a grandmaster. After all, that was the building foundation dan, and not to mention the refining, it was even rarely ever seen because building foundation dan's material were too little. They very much wanted to know how Chen Shang could get so many azure profound fruits, and some were even playing with the idea of making Chen Shang sell a little to them. After the herbs were processed, Chen Shang, with same familiarity and speed, once again started throwing them in the alchemical furnace, and then he placed them in the alchemical furnace in an orderly manner. All of those old men engraved the whole process in their mind. Chen Shang closed his eyes, with both hands placed on either side of the burner design of the brilliant flame dragon furnace, and started pouring the flames. Then using his divine sense, he observed the internal changes of the brilliant flame dragon furnace, as the flames simultaneously started incinerating the herbs in the furnace. In this way, those old men ghastly stared at that brilliant flame dragon furnace. Except the subtle changes in the temperature, they were not able to sense anything else. Even more so, they didn't know the flow of time in the brilliant flame dragon furnace. 1 hour passed, Chen Shang fiercely opened his eyes, and with a smile, he said, "Successful." What? Successful? Although those old men saw Chen Shang stood like a statue, it was not fun to watch, and Chen Shang was successful. Did he really refine the building foundation Dan? In just a single hour, he had actually refined it. Besides, Chen Shang looked as if he was making a dumpling, simple and easy. Mrs. Li's eyebrows were also knitted together. She doubtfully went over and opened the lid of the alchemical furnace. She suddenly let out a cry of shock, because she saw 2 building foundation Dans. He had actually refined 2 building foundation Dan. Mrs. Li exclaimed. Generally, it was good if one could refine a building foundation Dan, but Chen Shang had actually refined 2. This was really scary. Even though Mrs. Li had good accomplishment with her cultivation, she still could not help but forget herself from shock. Those 10 old men were even more shocked. Their mouth were wide opened, their teeth almost fell off from shock. "This is the building foundation Dan." An old man stuttered. "Yes, it is the building foundation Dan. It is the same as what has been described. They have veins like 1,000 vein fruit, golden and azure like metal spirit fruit and azure profound fruit." Another old man exclaimed. They could not describe their feelings. They looked at Chen Shang with envy and jealousy. Their eyes were filled with a look of worship. If Chen Shang wanted to receive them as his apprentice, maybe they would immediately kneel. Chen Shang was now already a level 4 alchemist. However, he was better than them. Because Chen Shang was able to refine the building foundation Dan. Refining the building foundation Dan not only represented that the divine sense had achieved a certain level, it also represented their true chi had reached a higher level. Those 10 old men and Mrs. Li could not help but feel shocked. If Chen Shang was now in the true martial realm, then it would simply be abnormal. Chen Shang got a jade card. There were 4 golden stripes on the jade card, and on the jade card's back there were also 10 signatures carved using blood and divine sense aside from his name. Those were the signatures of the people who supervised Chen Zhang's assessment. Out of 2 building foundation Dan he had refined, Chen Shang only acquired 1. But Mrs. Li still felt a little sorry for him, so she decided to give Chen Shang 100,000 crystal stones. If Chen Shang didn't have the azure profound fruit, they would never be able to witness the refinement of building foundation Dan. "Chen Shang, how about I send some true martial realm escorts with you to the extreme martial sect? It might be dangerous on the way," Mrs. Li said. "Mrs. Li, thank you for your kind considerations, but it's not needed." Chen Shang slightly smiled. Because of Ji Dongchen's previous statement, if anyone powerful than Chen Shang tried to grab him, then the extreme martial sect's elder courtyard would take action, and no one would dare to take that risk. Even the Nirvana realm martial artists didn't dare to do so. Chen Shang left Fragrance City, released the vermilion bird fire wings, and flew towards the extreme martial province. In order to ensure Chen Zhang's safety, Mrs. Li and those 10 level 4 alchemists didn't spread things about Chen Shang, and they also maintained secrecy about Chen Shang. At this time, any extreme martial sect's disciple who was out or arranged in a distant place had already returned to the extreme martial sect, in order to participate in the extreme martial grand tournament, which was held once in a decade. It was the time to reveal how much their own strength had elevated, and at the same time, it was also the time to witness the birth of the new generation's most outstanding disciple of the extreme martial sect. Chen Shang, while flying in the air, was very relaxed and casual. This was exactly the benefit of true chi wings. "Brother Chen, give me that building foundation Dan to try," Long Shui tenderly said. After Chen Shang left Fragrance City, Long Shui never stopped asking, using all kinds of lovely and sweet words as she tried to cheat Chen Shang into giving the building foundation Dan to her. "No, I also am in need of it. Wait for me to collect the herbs again, then I'll refine them for you. Chen Shang flatly refused. Just let me taste it a little. I'll only lick. Long Shui once again muttered pathetically. Her voice was very likable, but Chen Shang still rejected her. If she got it in her mouth, that was like hitting a dog with a meat bun, which would never return. TLN. Ru Bao Zidago hit a dog with a meat bun, using the wrong method to approach a problem. This little greedy dragon was not so easy to keep. Besides, she loved to eat Dans. The more high grade it was, the more she loved to eat it. This made Chen Zhang's heart bleed. Flying high in the air, Chen Shang suddenly heard a sound from below. When he looked down, he saw a group of people were surrounding a white-robed girl. At this time, he was already at the border of Danxiang Taoyuan and the extreme martial province. It was also a very chaotic area. Wu Qianqin, how could she be here? Chen Shang immediately dove downwards. Wu Qianqin was originally an arrogant girl, but after fighting with Chen Shang, she became aware of her own faults, and turned over a new leaf, which led to her improved impression on Chen Shang. A person making a mistake was normal, but if one was unable to realize their own mistakes and obsessions, then this person would end up getting destroyed from their own mistakes. Chapter 135, Blue Star Fire Spirit. Chapter 135 Blue Star Fire Spirit. TLN. As someone pointed in the last chapter, they forgot who Wu Qianqin was. Wu Qianqin first appeared in chapter 112. She is the most beautiful female disciple in extreme martial sect. I hope this clears some doubt. Wu Qianqin's arms were fully covered in blood, and a bloody sword slash stained her beautiful cheeks. The level 3 spirit weapon in her hands had already been chopped into two. She was surrounded by 20 or so men, but she had a resolute look on her face. It was evidently clear she was not planning to retreat. She looked calm even though she was facing death. She knew her situation was already hopeless. Girl, obediently give us the treasure, and we will spare your life. A handsome man coldly said. Although Wu Qianqin was beautiful, he was more or less concerned about the thing in Wu Qianqin's hand. Even in death, you will not get it. A blue bead suddenly appeared in Wu Qianqin's hand. She opened her mouth and quickly swallowed the bead. Slut, you dare to eat this treasure. That handsome man angrily roared and rushed over. After Wu Qianqin swallowed the blue bead, she felt an excruciating pain coursing all over her body, but she clenched her teeth and endured the pain. But as a result, she was now devoid of strength. Just as that handsome man's sword was about to stab her, a scalding heat engulfed the group. A ball of flames fell from the sky, fiercely crashing onto that handsome man's body, making him issue a blood-curdling scream. Wu Qianqin only saw a tall silhouette appear in front of her, and on the back of this tall silhouette, there was a pair of huge wings fully composed of flames. Chen Shang. Wu Qianqin remembered that Chen Shang had huge fire wings exactly like those in front of her. She didn't know why, but when she saw Chen Shang appear in front of her, Wu Qianqin felt she was now safe. She slumped on the ground while enduring the stabbing pain. She strugglingly said, "Thank you for rescuing me." Chen Shang's huge fire wings were already very famous, and to his surprise, Wu Qianqin's attackers actually recognized him. Ha ha, so it's Chen Shang who has a bounty of 300,000 crystal stones. A man laughed and said. However, his laughter quickly disappeared, because he saw Chen Shang was stepping on the handsome man's head, and it was already buried deep into the ground. Chen Shang had actually trampled the handsome man to death. They are true martial sect disciples. I accidentally obtained an orb, but when they saw it, they wanted to rob me. They have been hunting me for the last 10 days. Wu Qianqin said while clenching her teeth. At this very moment, she was experiencing unimaginable pain. Chen Shang coldly snorted, "True martial sect's disciples, you're truly good. You actually dare to blatantly bully my extreme martial sect's disciple. Chen Shang, do you also want to make the true martial sect list you as a wanted man?" That man gloomily said. "Everyone is welcome to come at me." Chen Shang loudly shouted, accompanied by an invisible true qi spewing from his mouth which struck that man's body. Soon, that man spouted a mouthful of blood as an explosion rang inside his body along with the sound of breaking bones. In blink of an eye, he was killed. Those true martial sect's disciples were astonished, their faces were filled with shock. Just by speaking, Chen Shang could instantly kill one of them. In the end, just how strong was Chen Shang? Go back and tell Liao Xiaoyun to not die quickly, I'll kill him with my own hands. Chen Shang said in an imposing manner. An invisible pressure suddenly enveloped those true martial sect's disciples, making all of them kneel and vomit blood. Their faces contorted in pain, some even fell unconscious. Humph! Chen Shang coldly snorted. Soon, all of those disciples spewed a mouthful of blood at the same time, before the invisible pressure immediately disappeared. Actually, Chen Shang had not wanted to kill them. Otherwise all of them would have been dead long ago. Right now, Chen Shang was already at the first level of the true martial realm. Mortal martial realm martial artists were just like ants in front of him. As long as he wished to, he could make them turn into a puff of smoke in the blink of an eye. Wu Qianchen, who was behind Chen Shang, saw everything clearly. Regarding Chen Zhang's strength, she too was very surprised, even though it was not the first time she saw Chen Shang taking action. Seeing him safely returned, she secretly sighed in relief within her heart. She had been worried about Chen Shang. Chen Shang turned around and hugged Wu Qianchen, and then released his vermilion bird fire wings. In the blink of an eye, the pair flew away. Those true martial sect's disciples all let out a sigh of relief. Just a moment ago, they felt that their death was imminent. Even if they hated Chen Shang in their hearts, they could not help but admire Chen Zhang's strength. In front of Chen Shang, they were nothing more than ants. While holding Wu Qianchen's tender body, Chen Shang felt her soft body trembling, and her body temperature was extremely hot. He could see that Wu Qianchen was in a lot of pain. What did you eat? Chen Shang landed on a mountain peak, held Wu Qianchen's wrist, and probed the situation within her body. He was unexpectedly surprised to see a group of blue flames appearing in her body. These flames were emanating scalding hot chi waves one after another, as if they were trying to refine Wu Qianchen's true chi and meridians. I also don't know. To put it simply, this orb contained a huge amount of fire spirit chi. Wu Qianchen said while grinding her teeth. Even though she was suffering from intense pain, she didn't cry at all. She didn't want to appear weak in front of this man. Wu Qianchen appeared to be in huge amount of pain, and Chen Shang was also at his wit's end. Yes, Blur Star Fire Spirit. When 72 blue stars fell on the mortal world from the sky, all of them became fire spirits. This is one of those stars fire, and was bred inside a blue-colored plant. Long Shui said. It was evident that she too was surprised from her voice. Fire spirit. It was actually a fire spirit. This was the stuff of the legends. Even immortals would be captivated upon hearing its name, yet it had actually ended up within Wu Qianchen's possession. Su Meiyao and Bai Yuyu were also very surprised. They had not anticipated that after Elder Dan, they would once again see yet another individual possessing a fire spirit. If an alchemist had a fire spirit, it would be very handy for them to refine Dan's with. It was a sacred object in the eyes of all alchemists. Hold on, you must fuse with this thing. As Chen Shang held Wu Qianchen in his arms, he gently encouraged her. Wu Qianchen nodded. She had no idea where she got the strength to operate her cultivation method, but her dantian responded as it continuously burst forth with compressed true qi. Inconceivable pain tormented Wu Qianchen. For her, the pain she was experiencing was worse than death. She leaned against Chen Zhang's chest, with both of her hands embracing Chen Zhang's waist. Her nails unconsciously scratched Chen Zhang's back because of the pain. Round after round of blood stains started appearing on his back, and although Chen Shang was in some pain, he was silent, his one hand gently stroking Wu Qianchen's back. No, her internal strength heart law is too low-leveled. She is unable to quickly suppress the blue star fire spirit using a large amount of spirit chi. Quickly teach her the vermilion bird divine exercise. Her comprehension should not be too bad, otherwise, she would be unable to reach this level just by using such a low-level internal strength heart law. Su Meiyao said. She also wanted to take a look at how someone would fuse with a fire spirit. Chen Shang slowly read out aloud some mnemonics. After he finished reading each paragraph, he would then explain it to Wu Qianchen. While Wu Qianchen was enduring the pain, she carefully listened and was very grateful in her heart. She knew that Chen Shang had imparted a very extraordinary martial exercise. She operated her true qi according to the mnemonics, and gradually, the pain tormenting her body faded away. 3 days passed. Wu Qianchen slowly opened her eyes. She realized that she was lying in a warm embrace, and her pretty face could not help but blush. However, Chen Shang just looked at her with a gentle smile. Congratulations. You've become a true martial realm martial artist. Wu Qianchen was surprised and quickly left Chen Zhang's embrace. At this time, she indeed felt very rich true qi within her body, and her true qi was pure blue in color, as well as 2 vermilion bird-like beast forms in her dantian. Thank you. Wu Qianchen bowed and said. At this moment, this was the only way she could show her gratitude. She truly didn't know how to pay back Chen Shang for how much he has helped her. At this time, she saw her nails stained with blood, and she suddenly remembered how she was scratching Chen Zhang's back while enduring the pain that was tormenting her body. "Are you okay? Let me take a look," Wu Qianqun hastily said. Her beautiful face was filled with guilt. Chapter 136, Return. Chapter 136 Return. After seeing the scratch marks on Chen Zhang's back, Wu Qianqun felt very guilty before meekly saying, "I'm sorry, let me help you with this." Chen Shang slightly smiled. "No need, it's only minor injuries." Although he said so, Wu Qianqun made him lie down before taking out a very cool liquid. She applied the cool liquid on the scratch marks on his back. Chen Shang felt very comfortable as her beautiful hands lightly rubbed his back. "Wu girl, do you know what you just fused with?" Chen Shang asked. Wu Qianqun's face was currently hot and red since it was the first time she had such an intimate contact with a man. Not to mention the fact that she held very good feelings towards this specific male. She softly said, "I do not know. Young Master Chen is well informed, you should know. Young Master Chen, from now on simply call me Qianqun." Chen Shang had a mischievous smile hanging on his face. "I remember when you first saw me, at that time, your imposing manner was very good. Now you are like a little girl. From now on, you should simply call me Chen Shang. What's with this young master nonsense?" Wu Qianqun let out an "N." Her pretty face had a tinge of red as she spoke. "Chen Shang, I was like a frog in a well who didn't know her own insignificance, and because of my talent, I was proud and arrogant. But fighting with you made me realize my own mistakes, and if not for that, I may have failed to realize my own wrongdoings. I would have made even more mistakes and led myself on the wrong path of cultivation. Honestly, since my last contest with you, my state of mind has elevated a lot, allowing me to break through my bottleneck." Chen Shang smiled. "You didn't just break through a little bit, you are now a very young true martial realm martial artist." "That's right, how old are you anyway?" At this point, Wu Qianqun was no longer formal with Chen Shang, because she knew this man was very amiable. As long as you would respect him, he would also respect you, and he was also very straightforward. She stuck her tongue out, chuckled, and spoke, "Don't you know it is rude to ask a girl's age? But I can tell you, I'm 28 this year." "Ah, ha ha ha, elder sister." Chen Shang laughed and said, Chen Shang would absolutely not refuse if he could be together with a beauty, not to mention the most beautiful girl in the extreme martial sect. Since the fight with Chen Shang, Wu Qianqun was no longer confident. But now that she had entered the true martial realm, her confidence had once again reached its peak. However, she was no longer proud and arrogant, now she was even more beautiful, more matured, and had a better temperament. "Chen Shang, do you know what I have just fused with?" Wu Qianqun lightly smiled as she continued to stroke the scratch marks on Chen Zhang's back. Those scratch marks soon became a lot lighter. "It is called the Blue Star Fire Spirit, a special and rare martial spirit. In other words, with this thing, you can release a strange flame. This type of flame originated from the fire seed, and is very beneficial for alchemy." Chen Shang replied. He had a look of envy on his face as he continued, "This thing is very formidable. In fact, one of the reasons why Elder Dan has such high achievements in alchemy is because of her fire spirit." Wu Qianqun had also heard about martial spirits, but it was the first time she had ever heard of a fire spirit. When she discovered that she got such an extremely rare treasure, she was very excited in her heart. Of course, she knew that if Chen Shang was not here, she would have probably already been destroyed by the Blue Star Fire Spirit. "Chen Shang, I can also refine Dans. I just got back from Fragrance City and am now an official level 2 alchemist. I hope you could give me 1 or 2 pointers." Wu Qianqun calmed down the excitement in her heart and revealed a charming smile. Chen Shang smiled and nodded his head. "I certainly would. You are even more beautiful compared to the first time I met you. Sometimes, real beauty does not necessarily rely on a beautiful face, sometimes, it's all about how beautiful the heart is." Wu Qianqun blushed, lowered her head and whispered, Thank you for your guidance." The scratch marks on Chen Zhang's back had already disappeared. He knew that this was because of the healing potion Wu Qianqun refined herself, its effect were pretty good. "Whoops, the Extreme Martial Grand Tournament starts in 8 days, we don't have enough time." Wu Qianqun suddenly exclaimed. "Why would you be afraid of such a thing?" Chen Zhang's laughter resounded before a pair of fire wings suddenly sprouted on his back. Wu Qianqun shyly lowered her head. She knew that she would once again have a close contact with Chen Shang for quite a while, but she was also secretly looking forward to it. Chen Shang hugged Wu Qianqun, spread his wings and soared. In the next moment, he was already flying high above the clouds. Wu Qianqun's beautiful face became pale from fear, but she quickly adapted. Qianqun, not in a million years should you ever pass the exercise I gave you on to others. I trusted you when I passed on this martial exercise, do not let me down. Chen Shang said with a serious expression. I promise, I'll never spread it to anyone. Wu Qianqun nodded her head before closely wrapped her arms around Chen Zhang's robust waist. Chen Shang also used one hand to embrace her tender and pretty waist, both of their actions were very ambiguous. It only took 3 days for Chen Shang and Wu Qianqun to reach Tianmen City, it was currently very lively. In these past 3 days, Wu Qianqun had been embracing Chen Shang as he flew. Remembering that feeling, she secretly felt warmth inside her heart, she also felt it was very romantic. Qianqun, you don't have a teacher, right? I'll introduce to Elder Dan, she seems to be missing an apprentice. Chen Shang cheerfully said. Wu Qianqun was somewhat surprised after hearing this because, according to the rumors, Elder Dan could not wait to kill Chen Shang. But apparently it seemed that Chen Shang and Elder Dan's relationship was quite good. The past few days, Chen Shang had also learned many things about Wu Qianqun. He had not expected Wu Qianqun to come from a plain mortal family. But as she was inherently talented, she was recruited into the peerless martial sect. There, she mingled with various rich and powerful disciples, and over time, she found herself becoming a part of the group. However, whatever she had accomplished today, was all achieved advancing step by step as she transformed herself into a genius-level figure. Wu Qianqun happily nodded her head. If she could have Elder Dan as her teacher, that was indeed something worth rejoicing for. However, Elder Dan had always been elusive, she had been in closed-door training for almost 3 years. When they arrived inside the extreme martial sect, Chen Shang and Wu Qianqun looked like an attractive couple which was very conspicuous as they walked on the road. Many people knew about Wu Qianqun, after all, she was recognized as the #1 of the top 10 beauties of the extreme martial sect. As for Chen Shang, he was also recognized by a lot of people, he was not only famous in the extreme martial sect, he was even famous in the entire Chenwu mainland because of the 300,000 bounty on his head. Chen Shang arrived with Wu Qianqun at the 16th martial courtyard, and just like before, it was still deserted. That day when Wu Qianqun and Chen Shang had a martial contest here, it was still the 500th martial courtyard, who would have thought it would suddenly be at the forefront of all the inner martial courtyard. Qianqun, you go and find Elder Wu to make arrangement for you. After all, you are now in the true martial realm. This first inner martial courtyard in your eyes is just floating clouds. Chen Shang spoke with a smile on his face. Wu Qianqun should have the qualms to be proud of herself. She hadn't even reached 30 years old, but had already entered the true martial realm, not to mention the fact that she had also acquired a fire spirit. But Wu Qianqun, after coming into contact with Chen Shang, had already changed a lot. So it was no surprise that she just replied, "Isn't it possible for me to be with you in the same martial courtyard in the future? Although I'm in true martial realm, I feel that I can learn many things with you. At least now, because of you, I have changed a lot." Chen Shang, after some thought, said with some difficulty, "I worry my fiancé would get jealous." He missed Shui Shenxian very much. After the Extreme Martial Grand Tournament, he felt he should go and find Shui Shenxian. Wu Qianqun was shocked in her heart, she bit her lips, evidently loss and pain in her eyes. "You have a fiancé? Is she also a disciple of the Extreme Martial Sect?" Chen Shang smiled and said, "No, she and I were betrothed in the secular world, she is called Shui Shenxian, she is in Divine Weapon Heavenly Empire." It turned out to be Shui Shenxian. Wu Qianqun was shocked, she understood why Chen Shang was never interested in the beautiful girls within the extreme martial sect, he already had a fiancé, he certainly didn't need to bother with any other woman. Wu Qianqun lowered her head, she felt extremely sad. "Your chest is very big, holding you felt great." At this time, Long Shui imitated Chen Zhang's voice and responded, which then made both Chen Shang and Wu Qianqun petrified. Chapter 137, Martial Nephew. Chapter 137 Martial Nephew. TLN. I have changed Extreme Martial Grand Meeting to Extreme Martial Grand Tournament. Corresponding changes have already been made in previous chapter. If I missed it, please do point it out. Wu Qianshan's pretty face turned very red. She had not expected Chen Shang to say such frivolous things so lightly, but in her heart, she was secretly elated. After all, Chen Shang had praised her, and she knew Chen Shang was attracted to her. Chen Shang wanted to release his anger, but he refrained himself and explained instead, I meant to say, your body is very nice. Wu Qianshan nodded her head, then distractedly left. Chen Shang, after getting sure she had left the martial courtyard, used all his force and smacked his own chest as he angrily said, Little dragon, you better not appear in front of me, or else I will spank you till your little ass is swollen. Long Shui with a light snort replied, You first captured her heart, and then was so ruthless towards her, this dragon could not bear it. Let's talk in the future. Chen Shang slightly sighed. Obviously, he could see Wu Qianshan was interested in him. Chen Shang like always waited for Yun Xiaodao and Zhu Rong in the 16th martial courtyard. However, instead of his two good friends, that old baldy Wu Kaming was the one who came. Hey, my nephew little baldy, you are truly good. You knew I came back, you even personally paid a visit. Chen Shang smiled and said, taking advantage of this peerless martial artist made him feel superior. Young bastard martial uncle, you did not die, I'm truly unhappy. Don't you know you made us worried for nothing for so long? Wu Kaming sighed bitterly, he could not wait to spank Chen Shang. And little featherhead, Chen Shang smiled mischievously and asked. Dean is arranging things for Wu Qianshan. I did not expect she would go out on a trip and actually break through her bottleneck and become a true martial realm martial artist at such a young age. Our Dean and the peerless martial sect's Dean are both discussing how to reward her. Wu Kaming replied, seeing Chen Shang was safely back, he felt much better. He also learned Chen Shang had saved Wu Qianshan, and allowed her to smoothly break through. Are you waiting for that little fatty and skinny boy? You don't need to wait. I don't know where they acquired the building foundation Dan, but both of them had already entered closed-door training. I fear that they will only come out once the Extreme Martial Grand Tournament begins. Wu Kaming said. Both Zhu Rong and Yun Xiaodao had actually eaten building foundation Dans, and it was still unclear from where they got it. What happened? Chen Shang asked in surprise. According to what Yun Xiaodao said, it is very likely that they got it from a guy called Squinted Dragon. Wu Kaming replied. Chen Shang nodded his head, he was of course happy for his friends. Did Elder Dan come out from her seclusion? Chen Shang asked once again. She came out, she is currently in the Extreme Dan King courtyard. Both I and Dean hadn't told her the majority of things, especially the fact that you are our martial uncle. This is something you should explain yourself. Wu Kaming fraudulently smiled. Chen Shang stood at the entrance of Extreme Dan King courtyard, inserted the jade card in a hole, then the gate opened. Just as Chen Shang stepped into the entrance, a silhouette wearing black robe and a mask, with fiery light in both eyes, suddenly appeared in front him. This sudden appearance made Chen Shang jump back in fear. Elder Dan, you scared me to death. Chen Shang exhaled a long breath. You're not dead, where did you get that tree from? Elder Dan asked. Anxiousness could easily be detected in her voice. Chen Shang had planted an azure profound tree in the courtyard, and he couldn't simply hide it from Elder Dan. He replied, I found it deep in the mountains. Why? That is the azure profound tree. Every day it absorbs a large amount of true qi, while bearing the azure profound fruit in the process. Furthermore, the speed by which it bears fruit is too fast. Now the flowers had already blossomed. Elder Dan's voice was full of excitement. Chen Shang was also surprised. He thought that under normal circumstances, it would take 1 to 2,000 years for it to bear some fruits. But he had only left for 8 months and the flowers had already bloomed. With such a speed, he would be able to get fruits every year. This was simply similar to harvesting ordinary fruits. I'll go and take a look. Chen Shang quickly ran over. When he saw 20 flowers blooming on the trees, he suddenly let out a loud laughter. Ha ha, father would become the richest person. Elder Dan smacked Chen Zhang's head and coldly spoke, do not be proud, it still hasn't bore the fruits. Anyway, where and for what have you gone all these days? Although I hate you, you're still a member of Extreme Dan King Courtyard, I'll not allow you to have slightest mishap. You better accept me as your teacher. I can pass you remarkable divine martial techniques. I can also refine building foundation Dan for you and help you break through. Chen Shang, using his pinky finger, scratched his ear and mischievously said, nameless little girl, you should be aware that I have killed a true martial realm martial artist of beast martial sect, right? Then you should also know I was imprisoned in the Forbidden Land. Yes, only that insane old man would use this name. Is it you? Elder Dan was not stupid. After thinking it through, her tender body slightly shuddered. Chen Shang looked up and loudly laughed before taking out a contract, then he handed it over to Elder Dan. His laughter was just like that insane old man. This is proof of my apprenticeship. Although teacher is maniac, he is a nice person. He taught me a lot of things. Otherwise I would have already been dead in Fragrance City. Chen Shang proudly said. Elder Dan's beautiful hands were trembling. She gradually opened the master and apprentice contract. She could clearly sense Huang Jishan's peculiar true chi breath. Dan Elder let out a deep long sigh and slowly said, "Does Dean and Elder Wu know about this?" "Of course they know. They both call me Martial Uncle. It doesn't matter if you don't call me that way, because I know you hate me, and I also don't want to force you," Chen Shang said as he pretended to sigh, before putting away the master and apprentice contract. Elder Dan lightly snorted as she stood there, speechless. Her teacher was very good towards her, and Huang Jishan was also the same. If not for these two people's strength, she would probably not be alive today. She held both of them in very high regards and was very respectful towards them, but as for Chen Shang, Martial Uncle, Elder Dan also called him so, but way she spoke was very stiff, not to mention her voice was also full of hatred. Hey, Little Bald and Little Featherhead both call me young Martial Uncle, you can also call me so. Chen Shang laughed. He was even more proud. All of his teeth were clearly visible as if they could fall off at any moment. Elder Dan coldly snorted. Now any idea of taking Chen Shang as her apprentice had already ceased to exist. Taking her own Martial Uncle as her apprentice, it was simply a joke. When others are present, we will act like usual, but if there is no one, you have to respect me. Chen Zhang's complexion became serious. You have keep this thing secret, you can't let anyone know, otherwise, I would be in big trouble. I'm not an idiot, you don't have to teach me this point. Besides, you are now very annoying, Elder Dan coldly said. Chen Shang laughed and said, Elder Dan, Wu Qianchen have just advanced to true martial realm, and she has fused with the fire spirit just before advancing. I personally witnessed the whole process. She is a girl and also her talent is not bad. Furthermore, she is now a level 2 alchemist. It would be good if you take her as your disciple. Chapter 138, Fishing Up a Fortune. Chapter 138, Fishing Up a Fortune. This chapter was sponsored by Joshua Lee. Fire Spirit. Once Elder Dan heard these two words, she could not help but be startled. Regarding this matter, she was very shocked. Are you telling the truth? Elder Dan was still in disbelief over what Chen Shang had previously said. If you don't believe me, you should go and take a look, Chen Shang said with a small smile hanging on his face. I do not intend to take any apprentices, but I could instruct her and look after her like she was my own apprentice. There are not many who know the usage of the fire spirit even in the whole Chenwu mainland. Elder Dan proudly said. She guessed. Chen Shang had already been told by that insane old man, Huang Jishan, that she was in possession of a purple moon fire spirit. Chen Shang grinned and said, Elder Dan, now that you are my martial niece, if I win against you will you still become my woman? Elder Dan was stunned for a moment, before she instantly retorted, of course. This matter has nothing to with that one. At this time, she truly began to worry that Chen Shang could beat her, because she knew that insane old man would never causally take an apprentice. I hope you're not ugly. Chen Shang licked his lips, his smile was very dubious. I have already said, I'm absolutely not uglier than Shui Shenxian. You don't need to doubt my appearance. Elder Dan furiously retorted. Hey, empty words. Remove your mask then, let me have a look. Regarding Elder Dan, Chen Shang was getting more and more curious, because he always felt Elder Dan was very familiar. Besides, she also intentionally altered her voice and hid her face. Elder Dan coldly snorted before leaving the Extreme Dan King courtyard. Little dragon, were you able to see through this woman? Chen Shang asked. He knew that Long Shui had some unusual abilities. Not really, this woman is truly very mysterious. Her whole body is cluttered with purple moon fire chi, tightly covering every inch of her, said Long Shui. Chen Shang, quickly use the dragon saliva thing to grow this fruit. I want to eat it. Eat shit, only with alchemy can one unleash its full potential. I just wanted to try this thing. Long Shui muttered. Chen Shang revealed a sliver of a smile as he looked at his azure profound tree before he left the Extreme Dan courtyard. He left in order to sign up for various events in the Extreme Martial Grand Tournament. One was the alchemy competition while another was the martial contest. He also signed up for the speed contest. Chen Xiang wanted to win in all of them. The winner of each contest would get 100 true elemental dans and 100,000 crystal stones, and if one got first place in all 3 competition, they would get 300 true elemental dans and 300,000 crystal stones. Chen Xiang tightly clenched his fists. Besides, he also had to support this greedy little dragon. He had to work even harder to earn more crystal stones to buy the herbs for alchemy. After being completely missing for 8 months, Chen Xiang had finally returned to the extreme martial sect, which caused quite a ruckus in the extreme martial sect. Not to mention the fact that almost everyone wanted his head. In fact, even some of the extreme martial sect's own disciples were entertaining the idea of taking Chen Zhang's head. After all, 300,000 crystal stones was enough for them to buy a lot of true elemental dans. With that many true elemental dans, they could have their cultivation advance by leaps and bounds. This type of temptation was pretty hard to resist. However, the extreme martial sect had shown a firm stance on this matter. If any disciples were found out plotting against Chen Xiang, they would be beheaded. Secretly though, there were a lot of people who had decided if they encountered Chen Xiang in the wilderness they would attack him. Along with Chen Xiang, there was another piece of news that shook the extreme martial sect. Wu Qianqun had advanced to the true martial realm. This news broke the heart of many disciples because now that Wu Qianqun was in the true martial realm, she would absolutely never pay any attention to them. Furthermore, many female disciples broke into fierce jealousy after hearing the news. If the extreme martial sect had something like a young powerful experts list, then Wu Qianqun would definitely be ranked first. However, this was only because Chen Xiang was hiding the fact that his cultivation had reached the true martial realm from everyone. This was because he wanted to make a fortune in the Extreme Martial Grand Tournament, but if it were to be known he had reached the true martial realm, he would definitely be kicked out by Ji Dongchen and Wu Kaming. Chen Xiang soon returned to the Extreme Dan King courtyard, but he saw that Wu Qianqun was also here talking with Elder Dan. He had not expected Elder Dan to actually make another exception and once again allow someone to enter the Extreme Dan courtyard. When Wu Qianqun saw Chen Xiang, she could not help but lower her head, yet her expression gave away her depressed mood. Elder Dan could be considered quite old and she had her fair share of experience. Obviously, she could see something was wrong. Chen Xiang, what did you do to her? Elder Dan's voice was extremely cold when she asked. It was also filled with slaughter chi. At that moment, Chen Xiang clearly understood why Elder Dan allowed Wu Qianqun to enter the Extreme Dan courtyard. After all, Chen Xiang proposed that she would not have to respect his seniority and call him martial uncle if an outsider was present. Old ginger is still hotter than younger ginger. Chen Xiang lamented in his heart. Wu Qianqun rushed to Chen Zhang's defense. He did nothing, it's just I. Why are you not quickly leaving? I'm instructing her in alchemy. Elder Dan scolded. Chen Xiang hastily ran away as he cursed in a low voice. Chen Xiang arrived in the courtyard of the Azure Profound tree. He secretly poured the dragon saliva. He wanted to quickly grow the Azure Profound fruits. With them, he could refine many building foundation dans. A few days passed as the Extreme Martial Grand Tournament drew closer. In these last few days, Chen Xiang found out that Elder Dan was actually really gentle towards Wu Qianqun. Elder Dan patiently instructed Wu Qianqun in the ways of alchemy and also gifted her many herbs. When Chen Xiang learned that Wu Qianqun became a level 2 alchemist even with a lack of resources, he could not help but admire her. He believed that Wu Qianqun, with the blue start fire spirit, would definitely become an outstanding alchemistress. Chen Xiang had just come out of the mysterious realm before he learned another piece of astonishing information. Yun Xiaodao, Zhu Rong and Xu Weilong, all 3 of them had simultaneously advanced into the true martial realm. They were also currently meeting with the dean. Truly 3 idiots. Still, the advantage is occupied by me. Chen Xiang snickered in his heart. He suspected these 3 must had gotten their hands on a large number of building foundation dans. As long as there were no true marital realm disciples participating in the Extreme Martial Grand Tournament, Chen Xiang was completely confident he would be able to win all 3 competition and get the 300,000 crystal stone prizes as well as the 300 true elemental dans. This was not a small sum at all, as a true elemental dan was worth 5,000 crystal stones. That would mean 300 of them would be an additional 1.5 million crystal stones. His mother's father will make it big. Chen Xiang shouted in his heart. He was suddenly full of excitement and came to first inner courtyard. Just as he walked in, he saw Dean Wu lying on his chair while Zhu Rong's disgusting laughter was reverberating throughout the entire marital courtyard. Chen Shang already knew that Zhu Rong had become a true martial realm martial artist, and there was no doubt that he would have gotten some generous incentives for become a true disciple of the extreme martial sect. Younger brother Chen, you are not dead. Zhu Rong, after seeing Chen Shang for the first time in a while, actually responded like this. Chen Shang said with a light snort, why does everyone keep asking me the same question? Is it better off for me to be dead? Yun Xiaodao laughed, elder brother Chen, we are blessed. Lao Zhu just invited us out to eat, are you prepared to make him poor? Shu Weilong also lightly laughed, I'm already prepared. Chen Shang, you have truly made others worried in these past few months. It's good that you're back, however we cannot participate in the Extreme Martial Grand Tournament with you. Chen Shang laughed and said, so much better, I've signed up in all 3 competitions, and I will be first, hey hey. Regarding monetary and mathematical matters, Zhu Rong was the most calculating of them all. In his mind there suddenly emerged a giant value. He exclaimed, if you get first in all of them, won't you earn a lot? Both Yun Xiaodao and Shu Weilong suddenly realized this fact, and they could not help but get shocked. After becoming true disciples, each of us only got 100 true elemental dans, 50,000 crystal stones, and a used level 3 spirit weapon. Well, at least now, we can get 100 true elemental dan and 100,000 crystal stones every year. However, we can't participate in the Extreme Martial Grand Tournament now. Zhu Rong sadly said. He suddenly felt he should have hid his own strength and also participated in the Extreme Martial Grand Tournament. TLN. I was working on bonus chapters as well as the missed chapters, but I partied with my friends and now dead drunk could only translate these 2 chapters. Maybe you will get the bonus chapters tomorrow. Thank you for your patience. Chapter 139, Race. Chapter 139 Race. TLN. Last night, while I was translating, I made a mistake. The price of true elemental dan I mentioned was 500 crystal stones, but actually, it was 5,000, and Chen Shang would get 1.5 million crystal stones instead of 150,000 crystal stones. We are now the disciples of the 15th Martial Courtyard, we're a step higher than elder brother Chen. Yun Xiaodao was still somewhat regretting in his heart, but he was now very proud. He had accomplished his target, to transcend Chen Shang. How did you get so many building foundation dans? Chen Shang curiously asked. I found them when Lao Zhu took me to the place where I found the true elemental dan last time. We have been searching there for 3 months, and finally, we found a box of building foundation dans. In the box there were 8 of them. Each of us got 2 building foundation dans, we also left 2 of them for you. Shu Weilong casually mentioned. They actually found them. Chen Shang in his heart was wondering, Shu Weilong's luck was extremely good. But if they didn't have Zhu Rong pestering them relentlessly, all 3 would have not been able to dig and search a place for 3 months. Zhu Rong had a smug smile on his face as he said, I'm rather loyal, take them. 600,000 crystal stones, that is the lowest possible price. Humph, I'm bankrupt, I paid him 700,000 crystal stones. Yun Xiaodao cursed in low voice. No way, you got these mainly because of me, you all have to recognize this fact. Zhu Rong shook his head and smiled. Chen Shang had also previously thought that both Zhu Rong and Shu Weilong were very loyal, but he had not expected them to ask for money. With a scoff, he said, I have all the materials for building foundation dan, Elder Dan also promised to help me refine. Shu Lao, let's take them for auctioning. Zhu Rong pursed his lips, and quickly took away the 2 building foundation dan. Chen Shang laughed and said, when did I say I don't want them? But currently, I don't have the money, wait for me to get those true elemental dan, I'll pay then. If they auction them, they would get a much higher price. Chen Shang could also make a profit from them, because he was now already in the true martial realm, he no longer needed the building foundation dan. Zhu Rong also knew that if he could auction them, then he would get even more crystal stones. However, Chen Shang was his friend, so he had to reluctantly give them to Chen Shang. Not to mention they thought Chen Shang had still not entered the true martial realm. Zhu Rong was now overflowing with wealth, his face was filled with the brilliance of success, a reason why Chen Shang and the group could drink and eat lasciviously in the hotel for a day and night. All the good dishes and wine in the hotel were ordered over and over, they ate and drank until they got tired. At the time of payment, Zhu Rong's face was filled with sorrow, complaining incessantly. He had already expected Yun Xiaodao and others would ruthlessly slaughter him, but he had not expected that they would be so ruthless to the point where he didn't wish to live anymore. The Extreme Martial Grand Tournament was a grand tourney for everyone below the true martial realm. As for true martial realm disciples and above, they were only responsible for some other work in the grand tournament. Of course, true martial realm disciples and above also had their own tournament, however, it was a competition between the sects that were part of the Chenwu mainland, and this kind of scene could only be described as spectacular. Today, all the streets in the Tianmen city were empty, because in today's competition, the disciples participating would need to pass through the Tianmen city. Whoever dared to create any chaos on the streets today, would certainly be unlucky. Inside the extreme martial sect, Ji Dongchen stood on a high stage in the square, with his hands behind his back, overlooking the few tens of thousands of disciples below. This was also the first time he met with so many disciples after coming out of his closed-door training. Ji Dongchen first spoke some nonsense about integration of the peerless martial sect into the extreme martial sect, then he also spoke a lot about things like being friendly with others. Afterwards, he praised those disciples who had recently entered true martial realm, and on the spot, he gave Wu Qianchen, Zhu Rong, Yun Xiaodao and Xu Weilong rich rewards which made many people very envious, but at the same time, greatly excited. Later on, Ji Dongchen actually started to severely criticize Chen Shang, saying that Chen Shang created a lot of loss for the extreme martial sect, caused a lot of destruction during the competition of first inner courtyard, injured a large number of disciples, and also sparked a lot of disturbance. Chen Shang secretly despised this martial nephew. It was pretty obvious Ji Dongchen was avenging personal vendetta in the name of public interest. But Chen Shang didn't care much about it, no matter what he said about him, at the end of the day, he still had to call him martial uncle. After all the nonsense was finished, Ji Dongchen announced the start of the Extreme Martial Grand Tournament, and then held the first contest. The first contest was the competition of speed. The competition would be held for the entire day. The participants would depart from the square in the middle of the extreme martial sect with the goal of retrieving an extreme martial token located on a hilltop at the other end of the Tianmen city, and whoever returned first would be declared as the winner. Over the years, it still took 6 hours for a round trip even for the fastest of all the winners. From this, it was clear that it was very far, and the participants would need to constantly run, and if they took even a moment of rest, other participants would be able to overtake them. This was a test of endurance and how rich their true chi was. During the race, any kind of conflict isn't allowed. Once found out, you'll be severely punished. Are you ready? Elder Wu said in a loud voice. Many disciples were participating for the first time, and so, they were very excited. Besides, all of them believed they could attain first place. 300,000 disciples participated in the race, and obviously, the biggest advantage was held by those standing in the front. Originally, Chen Shang was also in the front, but who would have thought he would be lectured and dragged by Ji Dongchen to the end, which was nothing more than nagging. Chen Shang, you will definitely get first. Wu Qianchen was now a lot more open. She slightly smiled while looking at Chen Shang. She had always felt an inexplicable joy whenever she was with Chen Shang. Both Zhu Rong and Yun Xiaodao were secretly hoping that they had a chance with Wu Qianchen, but they had not expected Chen Shang would be set with the extreme martial sect's first beauty, so they secretly despised Chen Shang. If Wu Qianchen had not entered true martial realm, fancying Chen Shang would also make sense. But now Wu Qianchen was in the true martial realm, a lot of true martial realm people were pursuing her, but when they saw her walking with Elder Dan, not a single one of them dared to have an idea to hit on her. That is a given. I have also signed up for all the 3 competitions, hey. Chen Shang laughed and said. Hearing this, Ji Dongchen and Wu Qiming's complexions slightly changed. If Chen Shang attained first in all of the 3 competitions, then doesn't it mean that he would be taking all the prizes? Wu Qiming said in a clear voice, 1, 2, 3. Start. Chen Shang and others only saw the crowd in front suddenly started galloping in madness. They were rushing while shouting, making the entire Tianmen city slightly tremble. It was as if a horde of wild animals was charging. At this time, Chen Shang ran like a child, happily and slowly, entering into the billowing smoke on the square. Suddenly, waves of scorching hot chi spread around. Ji Dongchen, Yun Xiaodao and the others were suddenly petrified for a moment, and they immediately thought of something. Bastard! This brat is extremely sinister. Zhu Rong immediately cursed while looking at Chen Shang who was in the sky, flapping those huge fire wings, flying towards the front. Too cunning, unfair, quickly come down. Some of the true martial realm disciples shouted, although they themselves could not participate, all of their apprentices had participated. Elder brother Chen, what you're doing is not right, quickly come down. Yun Xiaodao was also secretly jealous. Chen Shang using his true chi fire wings, he indeed could very easily get the first place. Chen Shang just laughed and didn't reply. In the rules, it was not mentioned anywhere that he couldn't fly. Chen Shang gradually arrived near the crowd in front. The participants below soon discovered him as they raised their heads to look. In the next moment, all of them started shouting and cursing again and again. Some of them also started throwing smelly shoes and bricks towards the sky. "Bastard, quickly come down, this is not fair, we are also running, bastard!" a man angrily shouted. Chen Shang looked down and saw those flying shoes, bricks and other debris. He suddenly laughed. "There is still the second and the third prize, all of you can still concentrate on that, otherwise, you won't even get shit." After laughing at them, Chen Shang flapped his vermilion bird fire wings, and in the blink of an eye, he had already flown far away, while the people in the back started cursing the heavens. However, it was to no avail, they could only secretly despise Chen Shang in their hearts. Chapter 140, Can't Explain. Chapter 140 Can't Explain. This chapter is the missed regular chapter of last week. Enjoy. Soon Chen Shang saw a very high giant mountain in front of him with a spiral road leading to the top. At the peak, there were many jade cards. To his surprise, there were tens of thousands of jade cards, completely covering the flat peak. In just half an hour or so, Chen Shang had arrived at the peak. He picked up a jade card before quickly returning to the extreme martial sect. He just instantly obtained 100 true elemental dan and 100,000 crystal stones so easily, and when he thought about the whole situation, he found it funny. On his way down, Chen Shang didn't forget to infuriate that rushing and profusely sweating crowd of people below him. Of course, he was once again cursed loudly by many of them, and there were also many things thrown at him, but just like before, none of it hit him. After an hour or so, Chen Shang returned to the extreme martial sect and handed over the jade card to Wu Kaming. Chen Shang grinned and said, "I didn't cheat. You brat, you're very cunning," Wu Kaming said with a bitter smile. At this time on the square, only Yun Xiaodao, Zhu Rong and Xu Weilong were waiting for Chen Zhang's return. Chen Zhang's way of winning got him cursed, but he had truly not broken any rules. The only thing that could be said was that the race rules weren't perfect. After all, the extreme martial sect's old codger simply had not expected a mortal martial realm disciple to have true chi wings, a type of extremely rare and powerful martial skill. Since Chen Zhang's return, all the way to his participation in the extreme martial grand tournament, no one had thought of his true chi wings. Wu Kaming gave Chen Shang a jade box filled with true chi dan along with a storage pouch filled with 100,000 crystal stones. However, Chen Shang was not planning to take the heat and give it all to Zhu Rong. This is what he owed for getting those building foundations dans, 100 true elemental dan worth 500,000 crystal stones along with another 100,000 crystal stones. All in all, he now paid back the 600,000 crystal stones to Zhu Rong, clearing his entire debt. "Younger brother Chen, isn't it your turn now to take us out for a treat?" Zhu Rong said with sinister laugh. Chen Shang scoffed and retorted, "Fatty, I think it should rightfully be your treat. After all, my hard-earned reward is all in your hands." Yun Xiaodao and the others stared at Chen Shang with contempt in their eyes. "You dare call this hard-earned?" This was simply playing with them. Those who were actually working hard were still on the road. Everybody reckoned Chen Shang had just woken up and came here to participate. After talking some nonsense with Yun Xiaodao and the group for a while, Chen Shang returned to the extreme Dan King courtyard and irrigated the azure profound tree. He also noticed that Wu Qianchen and Elder Dan weren't here. These days, Chen Shang also got notifications from Icewind Valley and the Divine Weapon Heavenly Empire, saying they were still undergoing training, so he was unable to contact either Shui Shenxian or Leng Yulin. For a very long time, Shui Shenxian had entered the true martial realm. Chen Shang had decided he would look for her after he had achieved the true martial realm, however, he was still unable to contact her and this made him very worried. The race had finally ended. When they returned, many people laid down from exhaustion in the square. Some could still stand and they were all cursing Chen Shang. Actually, curses were filling the entire extreme martial sect because Chen Shang easily got first place. He didn't even have to expend as much force as he needed to blow off some soot, yet he got such a huge reward. Who would not envy him to death? Chen Shang was currently resting in the extreme Dan King courtyard and preparing for the alchemy competition which was going to be held tomorrow. Only a few people had actually signed up for the event because there were not that many alchemists in the extreme martial sect. Moreover, the sect lacked resources and one had to bring their own herbs in the alchemy competition. Some alchemists believed that refining dans during the competition would affect their own performance, so they didn't bother signing up. Even if alchemists wanted to participate in the alchemy competition, they would have to be non-true disciples, so it was almost impossible for anyone to be in the true martial realm. It could be said that Chen Shang had no pressure at all. Knock knock knock. Wu Qianqun lightly knocked on Chen Zhang's door, waking him up. Inside the extreme Dan King courtyard, Chen Shang was very relaxed, unlike when he was outside where his nerves were taut every second, every minute of the day. Chen Shang released his divine sense and felt a familiar and peculiar flame aura. He instantly recognized it was Wu Qianqun. However, it was currently the middle of the night and a girl was knocking on a man's door. More or less, this situation made Chen Zhang's mind wander in a perverted direction. Chen Shang got out of the bed and opened the door. Qianqun, what's the matter? Chen Shang asked. Besides the start of the grand tournament, when he saw Wu Qianqun, he hadn't seen her or Elder Dan around and had no clue where they both disappeared to. Can we talk? Wu Qianqun's mouth curved up slightly, revealing an enchanting, tender, and beautiful smile. At the moment, she became even more confident, and the previous sadness had now vanished. It was clear that she had gotten over her previous depressing mood. Chen Shang was also happy for her. If possible, he didn't want this beautiful girl with a promising future to be ruined just because of some fleeting feelings. Of course, Chen Shang laughed. Currently, Wu Qianqun wore a very simple dress with a loose and casual white skirt. Her hair was bundled into a ponytail and there was no makeup on her face, just her natural beauty. Her entire appearance was very beautiful and moving. Chen Zhang's young blood was boiling from the mature fragrance wafting from her body. Chen Shang, I'm leaving the extreme martial sect with the dean tomorrow. I'm sorry I can't watch tomorrow's competition, please forgive me. Wu Qianqun's face was full of helplessness. I really wanted to see your performance in the grand tournament. Chen Shang smiled. That's nothing, since the dean is taking you away from the extreme martial sect, it must naturally be pretty important. Don't miss this opportunity. There will be plenty of opportunities to watch me competing in the future. Maybe there will be a chance for us to participate in various competition together and win glory for the extreme martial sect. There were a lot of competitions held just for the sake of sects competing with one another. Thinking about this point, the pretty white face of Wu Qianqun's had a hint of red afterglow. In her heart she was slightly excited just imagining it. Chen Shang, I learned from Elder Dan that you will have to face a powerful adversary tomorrow. It's rumored that this man is just a hair's breadth away from the true martial realm and he is definitely a level 3 alchemist. Wu Qianqun said. Chen Shang nodded his head, I'll pay attention. Anyway, where will the dean take you? Wu Qianqun wrinkled her brows and after considering for a moment, she replied, it's not only me and the dean, Yun Xiaodao, Zhu Rong and Shu Weilong are also coming with us. This is because we are the youngest true martial realm martial artists of the extreme martial sect. It seems that the dean wants to discuss something with the other sects, considering the dean is taking us to a gathering of young true martial realm martial artists of other sects. So that's the case. Chen Shang also wanted to go, but he was still participating in the grand tournament. Wu Qianqun suddenly whispered, Chen Shang, I heard that you and Leng Yulin are sworn brother and sister. In that case, can't you also take me as your sworn sister? I just want to stay by your side. Wu Qianqun's face was very red. When she looked at Chen Shang, her eyes were filled with anticipation. She knew that Shui Shenxian was Chen Zhang's fiancé. Wu Qianqun felt that she didn't stand a chance, but she still wanted to be together with Chen Shang. She could only think of this method to stay by his side. Chen Shang stared at her blankly and extended his hands, touching Wu Qianqun's beautiful face. This action made Wu Qianqun feel very sweet in her heart. At the same time, she was also looking forward to something. She hung her head, waiting for Chen Zhang's answer. Just as Chen Shang was about to say something, the naughty little dragoness attached to his body imitated his voice and hurriedly replied, I don't want you to be my sister, I want you to become my woman. I'm finished. These words immediately popped out in Chen Zhang's mind. He could not wait to strangle this naughty dragoness. Always at the most crucial moments, she would say something extremely terrible. Chen Zhang's reply made Wu Qianqun's tender body fiercely shake. She looked up at Chen Shang, with a trace of surprise and excitement in her eyes. However, her mind was still doubtful. She felt like it was not Chen Shang who spoke. It's late, I have to go. Wu Qianqun smiled sweetly, stood up and walked away. Chen Qiang was muddle-headed and distractedly sat in his room. How was he going to explain? He simply could not explain. He felt like he was going to explode. Chapter 141. Small Bet.